The liar paradox is a fascinating dilemma that has intrigued philosophers, logicians, and mathematicians for centuries. At its core, the paradox arises from a simple self-referential statement, famously illustrated by the phrase, "This statement is false." Imagine a situation where someone says, "I always lie." If this statement is true, then the speaker is indeed lying. But if they are lying, it means they sometimes tell the truth. This creates a conflict, making it impossible to determine the truth of the original statement. The beauty of the liar paradox is that it invites us to explore the complexities of truth and falsehood in a way that challenges our intuitive understanding of language and logic. To grasp the implications of the liar paradox, consider the idea of a truth-teller and a liar. A truth-teller is someone who always speaks the truth, while a liar always lies. Now, what happens when we introduce a statement made by a truth-teller that expresses their own dishonesty? It leads to a conundrum. Are they still a truth-teller if they claim to be a liar? The liar paradox is not just a linguistic curiosity. It has deep implications for formal systems of logic. For example, in Aristotelian logic, every statement is classified as either true or false. However, the liar paradox suggests that there are statements that elude this binary classification. This challenges the foundations of classical logic and encourages a re-evaluation of how we approach truth claims. This paradox has also given rise to various responses and theories in the realm of philosophy and logic. One such response is the development of paraconsistent logic, which allows for contradictions to exist without leading to an exponential breakdown of logical systems. In a paraconsistent framework, one might assert that a statement can be both true and false simultaneously, thus accommodating the liar paradox without chaos. Moreover, the liar paradox opens the door to discussions of self-reference and its role in language. Self-referential statements are statements that refer to themselves. The liar paradox showcases the unique problems that arise from self-reference. For instance, consider the famous Grelling-Nelson paradox, which defines a term as an autological word if it describes itself, like short for a short word. In contrast, a heterological word does not describe itself, such as long for a short word. The challenge emerges with the self-referential term heterological. Is the word heterological? Heterological? If it is, then it must not apply to itself, indicating it is actually autological. Yet, if it is not heterological, then it must apply, and therefore must be heterological. The complex interplay between self-reference and categorization propels our understanding of semantics and logic into uncharted territories. You may also encounter the liar paradox in literature and art, where writers play with the ideas of truth and falsehood. It's a theme explored in works ranging from ancient Greek philosophy to contemporary storytelling. When characters in stories make contradictory statements or grapple with their truths, they echo the challenges highlighted by the liar paradox. This artistic approach not only engages readers, but also invites them to reflect on their perceptions of reality. In a broader context, the liar paradox serves as a reminder of the limits of human understanding. It illustrates how language can create ambiguities and inconsistencies that may challenge even our most sophisticated logical frameworks. It invites us to remain curious and humble in the face of complex ideas, recognizing that some concepts may defy easy explanation or resolution. Throughout history, numerous thinkers have grappled with the implications of the liar paradox. The likes of Bertrand Russell and Kurt Gödel have engaged with self-referential statements in their explorations of logic and mathematics. Gödel's incompleteness theorems, for example, reveal the inherent limitations within formal systems, echoing the liar paradox, by demonstrating that there are true statements in mathematics that cannot be proven. This intersection of philosophical concepts and mathematical theories illuminates the rich tapestry of human thought on paradoxes. In conclusion, the liar paradox is not merely a puzzle to be solved. It is a profound exploration of truth, language, and the nature of reasoning itself. Through self-referential statements, we encounter striking contradictions that challenge our understanding of logic and inspire deeper inquiry into the foundations of knowledge. By examining the implications of the liar paradox, we engage in a fascinating journey that transcends the boundaries of discipline, revealing the intricate connections between language, thought, and reality. The paradox nudges us to consider the nature of truth in a world where language can be both illuminating and confounding, leaving us pondering the complexities that lie within our attempts to express and understand the world around us. The Barber Paradox is one of the most intriguing and thought-provoking puzzles in the realm of logic and philosophy. This paradox presents us with a simple scenario that leads to a complex and paradoxical outcome. Imagine a town with a single barber, known for his precise and immaculate shaving skills. He takes great pride in his work and serves a very specific clientele. He shaves all those men in town who do not shave themselves. Now, at first glance, this setup seems perfectly reasonable. The barber, being a man who shaves other men, does his duty by ensuring that those who cannot or do not wish to shave themselves are taken care of. It paints a picture of a bustling barber shop where men come in for a fresh trim and what feels like an essential service. However, as we dig deeper into the implications of this setup, things begin to unravel. The critical question arises: does the barber shave himself? If we consider that he only shaves those men who do not shave themselves, we arrive at a conundrum. If the barber shaves himself, then according to his own rule, he must not do so, since he only shaves those who do not shave themselves. Conversely, if he does not shave himself, then he must be one of the men who is eligible for a shave, meaning he should indeed shave himself. This recursive logic creates a paradox. In essence, we are caught in a loop where the barber is caught between two states of being. Thus, we can understand why this question has puzzled philosophers and logicians alike over the years. The Barber Paradox does not have a definitive answer because it leads to an inevitable contradiction. To put it another way, the paradox showcases a fundamental issue we encounter in set theory, a branch of mathematical logic. The barber can be viewed as a member of a set that includes all men who do not shave themselves. If he belongs to this group, he should not shave himself. But if he doesn't shave himself, then he falls into the category of those who should be shaved. This creates a riddle that challenges our understanding and invites us to ponder the nature of self-reference and categories. Throughout history, many notable thinkers have grappled with this paradox. Bertrand Russell, a prominent mathematician and philosopher, used similar examples to articulate his views on sets and self-referential statements. His work laid the groundwork for much of modern logic and helped us to understand the limits and challenges inherent in naive set theory. The broader implications of the Barber Paradox extend beyond a mere logical puzzle. It serves as a fascinating entry point into discussions about language, mathematics, and how we define categories within our world. How do we handle self-referential statements? Can something be defined purely by referring to itself without creating contradictions? In many ways, the Barber Paradox invites us to consider the complexities of categorization in everyday life. Think about roles we assume. For instance, if someone is both a teacher and a student, how do they navigate those identities? The seamless transition between those two roles can often lead to confusion and complexity. Just as the barber is defined by his role in relation to other men, our own identities are frequently shaped by our relations to the people around us. There are innumerable situations in life where the roles we adopt create similar paradoxes. Consider how we interact with our communities, society, and even our own thoughts. The edge between how we define ourselves and how others perceive us can often blur, leading to a dance of identities, much like that of the barber and the men he shaves. Although the Barber Paradox appears to revolve around a simple question about shaving, it spirals into profound considerations of logic, self-reference, and identity. The implications ripple through conversations about philosophy, mathematics, and even psychology, where self-perception and identity can create unique challenges. In summary, the Barber Paradox stands as an engaging metaphor for the complexities of categories and definitions in all aspects of life. It encourages us to think critically about the roles we play and the relationships we hold with others. Like the barber in this paradox, we navigate the delicate balance between defining ourselves and being defined by our actions. This conundrum leads to essential lessons in clarity, understanding, and the fascinating interplay of roles within our world. The paradox serves to remind us that what seems straightforward at first glance can reveal layers of complexity that invite deeper reflection and insight. The Grandfather Paradox is a captivating concept in the realm of time travel that challenges our understanding of cause and effect. Imagine this scenario. A person travels back in time and meets their grandfather when he was a young man, before he ever had children. In a twist of fate, the traveler somehow prevents their grandfather from meeting their grandmother. As a result, the traveler's parent is never born, leading to a question that boggles the mind. If the traveler was never born, how could they have traveled back in time in the first place? This paradox raises intriguing questions about the nature of time and reality itself. In our everyday experience, we operate under the premise that our actions have consequences. If you spill a drink, for instance, it will create a mess that needs to be cleaned up. But when you introduce time travel into the mix, the rules seem to change dramatically. To understand the implication of the Grandfather Paradox, let's dive deeper. The traveler goes back in time fully aware that they exist in their own timeline. They have memories, relationships, and a life that they cherish. But by interfering with the past, they create a ripple effect that alters the course of their own history. The idea that one can change the past flips the conventional understanding of time on its head. One fascinating approach to this paradox is the notion of alternate realities or timelines. What if, when the traveler prevents their grandfather from meeting their grandmother, an alternate reality is born? In this new reality, the traveler never exists, but in the original timeline, they continue to exist unchanged. This idea suggests that rather than changing the past, every action in time travel could diverge into separate timelines, each with its own unique history and outcomes. Alternatively, some theorists propose the idea of predestination, where all events in time are predetermined. According to this view, even if the traveler attempts to change the past, something would always occur to ensure that history unfolds as it originally did. For example, despite the traveler's best efforts, a series of unlikely events might conspire to ensure that the grandfather eventually meets the grandmother after all, securing the traveler's own existence. Consider another familiar scenario related to this paradox. A scientist invents a time machine and sets off on an adventure to gather knowledge from the past. Upon arrival, they might come across important historical events or figures. As they witness history firsthand, they might feel tempted to intervene in ways that could benefit humanity. However, their actions could inadvertently lead to consequences that profoundly alter the present. This raises the question, does one have the right to meddle with historical events for the sake of potential improvements? The Grandfather Paradox is not merely an academic debate. It evokes wonder about the ethical implications of time travel. If a person has the chance to save a life by going back in time, should they take that risk, knowing that their actions could erase their own existence? This moral quandary reveals deeper insights into human nature, exploring our desire to control fate while simultaneously recognizing the interconnectedness of events and choices. Moreover, the paradox interacts with the concept of memory. What if the traveler has memories of a life that no longer exists? This creates another layer of complexity. How do we define our identity if the very foundation of our existence has been altered? Are we simply a product of our experiences, or is there something more profound that binds us to our timeline, regardless of the changes we might invoke? As we contemplate the implications of the Grandfather Paradox, we also find the narrative woven into popular culture. Numerous films, books, and television shows have explored time travel and its complications. From iconic works like Back to the Future to more nuanced narratives in shows like Dark, the theme remains ever present. These stories compel us to not only question the mechanics of time travel, but also to reflect on the importance of our choices and their far-reaching effects. To truly grapple with such a complex idea as the Grandfather Paradox, one must embrace both wonder and skepticism. As exciting as time travel may seem, it invokes fundamental questions about our existence, free will, and the often unpredictable nature of life itself. Every choice we make, whether in the past, present, or a hypothetical future, contributes to the tapestry of reality, one delicate and intricate thread at a time. In conclusion, the Grandfather Paradox serves as a captivating thought experiment that challenges our perceptions of time and existence. Its implications reverberate beyond the realm of science fiction, inviting us to ponder the nature of our reality. Time, with all its mysteries, remains an enigmatic concept that continues to inspire curiosity and reflection. As we journey through life, each moment becomes part of our own unique timeline, one that is shaped not only by our actions, but by our thoughts, dreams, and the infinite possibilities that lie ahead. Whether reality bends to our will or remains steadfast in its own design, it fuels our imagination, inspiring us to explore both the past and the future with boundless wonder. Russell's paradox is a fascinating and intriguing concept that emerges from the realm of set theory, a fundamental area of mathematical logic. To understand this paradox, it is essential to first appreciate what sets are and how they generally function in mathematics. In its simplest form, a set is a well-defined collection of distinct objects, considered as an object in its own right. These objects are called the elements of the set. For instance, you might have a set of fruits that includes apples, oranges, and bananas. This set is simply a collection of items that share a certain characteristic, in this case, being fruits. Now, in the early developments of set theory, mathematicians began to explore the idea of sets in deeper and more abstract ways. One approach is to consider sets that include themselves as elements. This leads us to the question, can a set contain itself? Intuitively, one might think of it as a circular relationship, which opens up an exploration of more complex structures within set theory. Russell's paradox emerges when we delve into the idea of sets that do not contain themselves. To illustrate this, consider a set called R, defined as the set of all sets that do not contain themselves. At first glance, this definition seems harmless. Imagine that R contains all those entities that have the property of not including themselves. However, it quickly leads us to a paradox. The crux of the paradox lies in the question, does the set R contain itself? If we assume that R is indeed a member of itself, then, by definition, it cannot be. Remember, R was created to contain all sets that do not include themselves. Therefore, this inclusion contradicts the rule that defines R. On the other hand, if we say that R does not contain itself, that would mean, according to the definition of R, that it must include itself after all, because it falls under the category of sets that do not contain themselves. This leads to a contradiction that cannot be resolved. Russell's paradox reveals a fundamental issue in naive set theory, where sets could be freely defined without closely considering their properties. It highlights a limitation and the need for a more rigorous foundation for set theory, particularly in formal systems. This paradox prompted mathematicians, particularly in the early 20th century, to reconsider and refine the axioms that govern set theory. One of the significant responses to this paradox was the development of axiomatic set theories, such as Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory, which includes axioms designed to avoid such contradictions. The formulation of these axioms allows mathematicians to create a more structured framework, ensuring that sets can only be formed under certain rules. This effectively sidestepped the issues that Russell's paradox brought to light. Now, the implications of Russell's paradox are not limited to mathematics alone. Its philosophical significance is profound. It challenges our understanding of self-reference and the conditions under which things can exist in a defined system. It invokes questions about consistency, coherence, and the foundations of logic itself. In literature and art, these themes have been explored extensively. The existential dilemmas posed by self-reference and contradictions have become fertile ground for philosophical inquiry and artistic expression. Writers have drawn from these concepts to illustrate the complexities of human experience, identity, and self-perception, paralleling the intricacies of Russell's findings in human thought and understanding. In a larger context, the paradox serves as a reminder of the importance of rigorous definitions and clarity of thought. Just as mathematicians and logicians work to eradicate contradictions, individuals in various fields can benefit from careful consideration of the frameworks and assumptions that govern their disciplines. In this way, Russell's paradox transcends mathematics and enters the realm of critical thinking and clarity in communication. This paradox invites us to reflect on the very nature of classification and the boundaries we set around concepts. While it illustrates the complexities inherent in abstract thinking, it also encourages openness to new ideas and the potential for evolution in thought processes. In sum, Russell's paradox isn't just an abstract mathematical oddity. It's a significant philosophical and logical challenge that has informed the way we approach definitions, systems, and reasoning across various fields. Its enduring legacy is a testament to the richness of inquiry and the continuous search for understanding in a world filled with complexities and contradictions. Exploring this paradox not only enriches our comprehension of set theory, but also deepens our appreciation for the interplay between mathematics, philosophy, and the nature of thought itself. Each of these disciplines provides an angle through which we can examine the concept of self-reference and its implications, bridging gaps between empirical inquiry and philosophical musings, essentially serving as a reminder of the intricate tapestry of knowledge that weaves them all together. The ship of Theseus is a fascinating philosophical paradox that has intrigued thinkers for centuries. Imagine a grand ship that sails across the seas, named after the heroic figure of Theseus. Over time, as it navigates the waves and braves storms, its wooden planks begin to rot. Gradually, the ship's original parts are replaced with new ones. The question arises, is this ship still the ship of Theseus, or is it something entirely different? To explore this paradox, let's consider a metaphor. Picture a classic car, a vintage model with intricate designs and a rich history. Over the years, through wear and tear, its engine is replaced, then its tires, and eventually even its body panels are swapped out for new materials. At what point does it stop being the original car? Is it still the same vehicle that once drove through bustling city streets or appeared in nostalgic movies? This line of questioning leads us to a fundamental concept in philosophy about identity and change. The ship of Theseus serves as a prime example of how we perceive continuity. If every part of the ship is replaced, one by one, does the identity of the ship persist? Or does it transform into a new entity with each replacement? This conundrum invites us to examine how we define what makes something itself. Now, let's take it a step further. Suppose all the original parts of the ship of Theseus are collected and reassembled to form a new ship. Which ship is the true ship of Theseus? Is it the one that sailed the oceans originally, or the one made from its original components? This scenario further complicates matters, leading us to think about the nature of existence and continuity. This paradox also has implications beyond just ships and cars, extending into our own lives. Consider a tree that undergoes seasonal changes. In the spring, new buds appear, blossoms bloom, and leaves unfurl. As summer approaches, the tree grows, its bark thickens, and it absorbs sunlight. Come autumn, the leaves turn vibrant colors and eventually fall, only to be replaced by more buds in spring. Does the tree remain the same entity through all these transformations? Each season, it looks different, yet we still recognize it as the same tree. Similar questions arise in the realm of technology. Think about your smartphone. Over time, it receives software updates. Its battery might be replaced, and the screen gets a crack repaired. Despite these changes, it remains a device you rely on daily. But if you were to strip it down completely and reassemble it with upgraded parts, would it still be your phone? Or would it become something else altogether? We often find ourselves pondering these questions in various contexts, from the objects we cherish to the relationships we cultivate. How do we identify ourselves or others when faced with change? Identity is a rich tapestry woven from our thoughts, memories, and experiences, much like the ship of Theseus with its patches and replacements. Additionally, the paradox encourages us to reflect on how we embrace change. In life, we all undergo transformations. We grow, evolve, and adapt to new situations. Just as the ship of Theseus sails on, even as its materials are replaced, we too navigate through the seas of existence, swiftly moving from one experience to the next, while holding on to a sense of self. To delve deeper into identity, let's consider the concept of personal attributes, traits that seem to define us. Just as the ship is defined by its structure, we might find ourselves defined by our values, beliefs, and memories. However, as we grow older, our opinions may shift, our interests may evolve, and the relationships we hold dear can change drastically. Are we still the same person? Or do these transformations create a new version of ourselves? As you ponder these thoughts, you may find echoes of the ship of Theseus in your everyday life. The buildings in your town, the paintings on your walls, and even the pets you care for all undergo changes, highlighting the fluid nature of identity in both objects and living beings. In exploring this paradox, it's crucial to remember that change is a natural part of existence. It is woven into the fabric of life, reminding us that while aspects of our lives may transform, the essence remains. The thoughts and memories that define us can coexist with new experiences and continuous growth. The ship of Theseus Paradox raises questions that have no definitive answers. It challenges our conventional understanding of identity and compels us to take a closer look at how we perceive continuity over time. So, as you reflect on this paradox, consider your journey. How do you navigate the waves of change? What aspects of your life continue to define you, even as everything else shifts and transforms? In the grand exploration of identity, the paradox of the ship of Theseus is not merely a philosophical inquiry. It is a mirror that reflects our experiences, our ideas of self, and the connections we hold dear. Ultimately, the quest for understanding what it means to remain the same amidst change is as profound as any journey we embark upon. Zeno of Elea was a Greek philosopher who lived around 490 BC and is well known for his paradoxes that delve into the concepts of infinity and motion. His paradoxes are not just intellectual puzzles. They challenge our understanding of distances, time, and the nature of reality. Among his most famous paradoxes are the ones involving Achilles and the tortoise, as well as the dichotomy paradox. Let us begin with the paradox of Achilles and the tortoise. Imagine that the swift Achilles races a tortoise, which has a head start. Zeno argues that Achilles can never overtake the tortoise, no matter how fast he runs. When the race begins, Achilles sprints towards the point where the tortoise started. However, by the time Achilles reaches that starting point, the tortoise has moved a little further ahead. Then, Achilles must run to the point where the tortoise has now moved, but again. By the time he reaches that new mark, the tortoise has advanced. This sequence continues infinitely, suggesting that Achilles, no matter how much distance he covers, will always find the tortoise ahead of him. This paradox raises intriguing questions about motion and the nature of infinity. In practice, we know that Achilles, a swift runner, would easily overtake the tortoise. Yet, Zeno's argument stimulates discussion about the concepts of infinite subdivisions of space and time. It invites us to ponder how we perceive our world and the continuous nature of motion. Next, let's explore the dichotomy paradox. This paradox asserts that before an object can travel a certain distance, it must first cover half of that distance. In this way, if you want to reach your destination, you must first reach the halfway point. However, before reaching that halfway point, you must go halfway again. This division continues infinitely, leading to the conclusion that motion is impossible, as you can endlessly divide the distance into halves without ever actually reaching the finish line. Both paradoxes cleverly demonstrate the concept of convergence in mathematics. When we analyze these divisions mathematically, we find they can produce a finite sum. For example, if you keep having a distance, the total distance can still converge to a definitive point in reality, despite the infinite steps involved. This notion of convergence was not fully understood until the development of calculus centuries later. Zeno's paradoxes also highlight the distinction between the abstract mathematical world and the physical world we experience. In the real world, motion is continuous and fluid. We perceive movement as a whole, not as an endless series of subdivisions. Yet, Zeno invites you to engage with this philosophical conundrum, encouraging deeper contemplation of how we understand movement and time. Beyond just explorations of motion, Zeno's work highlights the broader principles of philosophy which have influenced generations of thinkers. His paradoxes sparked discussions among ancient philosophers, including Plato, who grappled with the concepts of the infinite, the nature of reality, and how we understand existence. They also planted seeds for future discussions in mathematics, physics, and metaphysics. Consider the implications of Zeno's paradoxes on modern technology. When we think of digital communication, we realize it relies on transmitting information through various formats and speeds. Just like the distances in Zeno's arguments, modern digital signals can travel at incredibly high speeds, allowing us to send messages across the globe almost instantaneously. Yet behind the scenes lies a complex series of smaller, instantaneous steps that resemble the paradox of division. As we traverse through these ancient ideas, we can reflect on how they resonate with current issues. For instance, in discussing limits and boundaries in physics, Zeno's paradoxes prompt us to ponder the nature of space and time. Why does distance appear seamless and continuous in our everyday life? Insights from his paradoxes remain essential in understanding our universe and its fundamental laws. In many ways, Zeno's paradoxes can also be likened to modern philosophical debates regarding free will and determinism. If movement consists of endlessly divisible steps, what does this mean for our own actions? Are we bound by fate, or do we possess the ability to choose? These questions echo Zeno's concerns and continue to inspire philosophical discourse today. In conclusion, Zeno of Elea gifted us a series of paradoxes that probe the depths of our understanding of motion, time, and infinity. While they present challenges to our intuition, they also spark curiosity and reflection on the nature of reality itself. These explorations not only shed light on abstract philosophical problems, but also encourage us to think critically about how we perceive our lives and the world around us. The ancient insights offered by Zeno continue to have significant implications in many fields, bridging the gap between philosophy and science through the timeless inquiry into the nature of existence, motion, and infinity. So as you ponder these thoughts, let your mind wander through the pathways of this ancient wisdom and consider how it applies to your own understanding of the world today. The Sorites Paradox, often referred to as the Paradox of the Heap, presents a fascinating exploration of language, logic, and how we categorize the world around us. At its core, the paradox challenges our understanding of vague predicates, terms that do not have clear-cut boundaries. The term heap stands as a prime example of this vagueness. Imagine a heap of sand. At first glance, it's easy to identify what constitutes a heap. A sizable mound of sand clearly fits this description. However, as you begin to remove grains of sand one by one, you start to encounter a perplexing question. At what point does that heap cease to be a heap? If you take away one grain, it remains a heap. Remove another, and it still appears to be a heap. Yet, if you continue this process endlessly, you eventually arrive at a point where one might argue that it is no longer a heap at all. This mind-bending scenario raises crucial questions about our use of language. Vague concepts like heap seem to depend on subjective interpretations, leading to potential contradictions in reasoning. For instance, if we can agree that one grain cannot constitute a heap, we must figure out how many grains can be removed before it stops being one. Each grain removed seems to undermine the formation of what we once deemed a heap, yet there is no precise number where one could definitively say it ceases to be one. The Sorites Paradox illustrates the challenge we face with such terms. Our language is filled with similar terms, bald, tall, and rich, which all fall under this umbrella of vagueness. For example, if someone has a full head of hair, we can say confidently that they are not bald. As their hair thins, however, we might struggle to find a specific point at which we must agree that they have crossed a threshold into baldness. This paradox also touches upon the concept of the continuum. With heaps, as with many other concepts, there exists a fuzzy boundary where distinctions become ambiguous. Visualize a staircase. If you were to remove the stairs one by one, at what moment does it transform from a staircase into a simple incline? A similar ambiguity exists within various contexts of our lives, challenging us to confront the limitations of our categorical thinking. Philosophically, the Sorites Paradox encourages deep reflection on the nature of definitions and categories. It prompts a consideration of how we form our concepts based on our everyday experiences and knowledge. The implications of this paradox extend beyond just linguistic concerns. They influence how we engage with the world, make decisions, and relate to ourselves and others. In practical life, the paradox reminds us that ambiguity is often woven into the fabric of human reasoning. Complicated social issues, ethical dilemmas, and even scientific classifications can reflect the same creeping vagueness present in the heap of sand. How do we draw lines in these complex situations? The reluctance to recognize vague boundaries can contribute to misunderstandings and conflicts, urging us to adopt a more nuanced approach to discussing such matters. Interestingly, the Sorites Paradox has practical significance in fields like law, medicine, and psychology, where clear definitions can often make a substantial difference in outcomes. For example, in the legal field, the term reasonable doubt is inherently vague and can lead to significant ramifications in court cases. Understanding the Sorites Paradox encourages us to acknowledge and navigate these ambiguous spaces so that we can make informed decisions without oversimplifying complex issues. To illustrate this further, consider the case of aging. At what point does someone transition from being middle-aged to elderly? Vague terms like middle-aged have societal implications and can define how we treat individuals at various stages of life. The Sorites Paradox encourages us to recognize that these labels can change in meaning based on personal perspectives, cultural contexts, and societal norms. Ultimately, the Sorites Paradox serves as a reminder to embrace ambiguity as part of human cognition. Rather than seeking rigid classifications, acknowledging the fluidity of concepts can lead to a more open-minded perspective. It persuades us to value shades of meaning, urging us to think critically about how we categorize, understand, and communicate within our lives. The beauty of engaging with the Sorites Paradox lies in its ability to stimulate thought and discussion about the nature of knowledge. It brings forth the vibrant complexity of human experience, illustrating that not everything fits neatly into defined categories. As we navigate our world, we are reminded of the importance of clarity, understanding, and acceptance of the intricate layers that existence offers. This paradox invites us not just to assess our understanding of words and definitions, but to also appreciate the richness that ambiguity brings to our interactions. By embracing this complexity, we can cultivate a more compassionate understanding of ourselves and others, creating spaces for dialogue that celebrate the diversity of human thought. The Sorites Paradox ultimately challenges us to seek clarity while also embracing the inherent uncertainty that life presents. In a small, dimly lit prison cell, a man condemned to die sits pondering his fate. His mind races with the implications of the impending sentence. But there is something different about this execution. It will take place on an unexpected day. The very nature of this uncertainty weaves a complex tapestry that engages his mind in a battle between logic and intuition. This scenario is often referred to as the paradox of the unexpected hanging, and it raises fascinating questions about knowledge, belief, and the predictability of events. The prisoner is told he will be hanged at noon on one of the days of the following week, but he will not know the day until it arrives. This arrangement seems straightforward at first, yet it quickly spirals into a perplexing logical trap. As the week unfolds, the prisoner begins to grapple with the implications of this surprising arrangement. He starts with Thursday. If he has not been executed by Wednesday night, he knows that Thursday must be the day of the hanging, since it is the last remaining option. This realization gives him a sense of certainty, yet it contradicts the very premise of the unexpected hanging. If he knows the day, it cannot be a surprise. Therefore, he dismisses Thursday as a possibility. With this newfound logic, he now considers Wednesday. If he has not been taken by Tuesday, Wednesday would also deliver the same dilemma as Thursday. He realizes that both of these days cannot be the execution day, because they cannot preserve the element of surprise. This reasoning compels him to strike off Wednesday as well. Continuing this line of thought, the prisoner turns to Tuesday. If he makes it through Monday, he would expect the hanging to occur on Tuesday, thus eliminating that day from consideration as well. Next, he considers Monday. If he survives the weekend, there remains no way for Monday to be the day without him knowing beforehand. In an attempt to synthesize all of this reasoning, the prisoner boldly concludes that he cannot be hanged at all. However, as the week progresses, the unexpected becomes reality. On a seemingly ordinary day, he's taken from his cell and led to the gallows. The execution is a complete surprise, sending his mind spiraling into disbelief. This paradox elegantly illustrates the conflicts that arise when one attempts to navigate the terrain of certainty and surprise. The mind tends to assume that a predictable outcome can only manifest if the individual recognizes it. Yet, reality often contravenes our expectations, revealing the intricacies of human understanding. At its core, the paradox examines an age-old struggle, the dance between knowledge and ignorance. How can one truly predict a future event that is dependent on multiple layers of understanding? The answer, it appears, is that prediction is not as straightforward as it seems. To illustrate this, consider a coin flip. If you are told a coin will land heads, the moment it does, you may feel relief or suspense based on your belief of the probable outcomes. However, when confronted with the element of chance, the anticipation can become disjointed. The outcome remains the same, yet your reaction is influenced by the expectations you have created in your mind. Similarly, the paradox reveals the difficulty in employing pure logic to assess a situation steeped in uncertainty. The prisoner's reasoning appears utterly sound at each step. His deductions eliminate the obvious days. However, they lead him to his ultimate contradiction. To fully grasp the implications of surprise, one must acknowledge that unpredictability can exist even amidst a seemingly rational framework. The unexpected hanging invites us to reflect on the broader questions of fate and free will. It tantalizes the mind with the possibility that what we believe we understand may not only be based on logic and reason, but also entwined with the unpredictable elements of life. In real life, we encounter countless moments where our assumptions fall short. Have you ever made plans, only to have them upended by unforeseen circumstances? Perhaps you anticipated a particular conversation going one way, only to have it shift into entirely unexpected territory. These instances mirror the paradox, demonstrating that no amount of preparation or reasoning can entirely safeguard us from surprise. Engaging deeply with the nuances of this thought experiment opens up further inquiries about our perceptions of time, belief systems, and the nature of existence itself. It lays bare the dichotomy between certainty and uncertainty, prompting us to consider how we navigate through life's unpredictable landscape. As we contemplate the variables in our own lives, this paradox serves as an intriguing reminder of our limitations when faced with the unforeseen. When we pursue understanding, we must remain open to the mysteries that lie beyond our grasp, leading us to a fundamental truth. The universe may hold surprises that defy even our most rigorous calculation. Through this exploration, the workings of human thought become palpable. The struggle between logic and the unpredictability of reality serves not only as a mental exercise, but also as a reflection on our broader existential journey. Each twist and turn provokes curiosity, urging us to find meaning amidst the uncertainty. After all, within these paradoxes lies the beauty of life's ongoing mysteries, reminding us that some things will forever remain beyond our comprehension, adding richness and intrigue to the human experience. The Bootstrap Paradox is a fascinating concept that stretches the limits of our understanding of time, causality, and the very fabric of our reality. Imagine a scenario where an event or an object exists without an identifiable point of origin. It is a puzzle that not only invokes curiosity, but challenges our perception of how time and information flow. Let's consider an illustrative scenario involving a famous piece of literature. Imagine a time traveler who goes back to the 19th century with a copy of Shakespeare's works. They arrive, share the text, and in the process, inspire the playwright to create those very plays, which eventually leads to the works being published. But here lies the paradox. Who actually wrote Shakespeare's works if the time traveler brought them from the future? The text exists in a loop, born of no original author. You can see this paradox manifest in various forms of media and storytelling. In films, particularly in science fiction, this idea plays out in intriguing ways. Picture a character who acquires a futuristic device, which eventually gets handed over to the future inventors, creating a cycle of innovation that has no definitive start point. Every piece of technology or every piece of information in this scenario has no origin. Instead, they feed into one another in a continuous loop, prompting one to ask, if the device has no creator, how can it function? The Bootstrap Paradox isn't limited to objects alone. It can also apply to ideas and knowledge. Consider a scientist who discovers a groundbreaking theory thanks to ancient texts stolen from their future. By updating historical knowledge and recirculating thoughts, they inadvertently create a situation where the information seems to simply appear in the world without any real genesis. How perplexing would it be to realize that their discoveries were already known, yet recirculated, creating an eerie convergence of past, present, and future. One of the key attractions of the Bootstrap Paradox lies in its implications for free will and determinism. If events are set in motion because of information and objects that have no clear origin, do our actions matter? Or are they merely part of an intricate web of time loops? When an individual travels backward in time and influences their own past, do they retain the freedom to alter their destiny? Or are they merely fulfilling a predetermined path laid out by these paradoxical events. In literature, this concept becomes even more compelling. Authors have long enjoyed weaving tales in which characters grapple with the notion of fate versus free will. In one compelling narrative, a protagonist receives instructions from a future version of themselves. They follow these instructions, only to realize later that those very actions created a future where they felt trapped rather than liberated. The Bootstrap Paradox challenges us to think critically about cause and effect, and how our choices may merely reinforce a timeline that was always meant to exist. Even in philosophy, the Bootstrap Paradox raises questions about reality. If events can occur that have no original cause, or if information can circulate in a loop without a point of origin, it creates a rich ground for debates about existence itself. Some philosophers propose that our understanding of time and causality must expand to accommodate such paradoxes, suggesting that our linear conception of time may not be an absolute truth. To further illustrate the idea, think of a painting that provides inspiration to generations of artists. An artist creates a piece that encapsulates stroke by stroke the essence of their predecessors. Years later, an art historian discovers the painting and attributes influences to artists that have existed in the past. This knowledge feeds back into the art community, which leads to even more creations inspired by that same painting, forming a visual dialogue across ages. As a result, it becomes challenging to pinpoint which artist truly originated the influence, highlighting an endless loop of creativity that stems from a singular piece of art without a definitive start point. In the realm of science fiction, the Bootstrap Paradox is a delightful narrative device. Think of characters that break the traditional timeline to reflect on their nature as time travelers. They meander through various epochs, only to find that their actions in the past, all played out, find their conclusion. They don't just visit history, they inhabit it, feeding it with their existence. Yet their impacts feel both significant and insubstantial. How can one entity hold such weight in shaping events that unfold with no direct lineage to speak of? So, the next time you find yourself pondering the nature of time, consider the Bootstrap Paradox. It serves as a window into the complexities and layers of existence that go beyond our mere perceptions of beginnings and endings. It encourages us to explore the nuances of creativity, innovation, and the very essence of time itself. In doing so, we engage with a timeless enigma, one that continues to inspire wonder and inquiry into the wonders of the universe. How interconnected are our experiences, and how do they weave through the tapestry of time without clear origin? These conundrums invite an exploration that is both intellectually stimulating and whimsically imaginative. The Raven Paradox invites us to think deeply about the nature of evidence and how we utilize it to draw conclusions about the world around us. At first glance, it seems simple. If all ravens are black, then finding a black raven confirms our belief that all ravens are black. However, the paradox challenges this straightforward logic by introducing a twist that can be surprising and thought-provoking. Consider the statement, all ravens are black. This is a general rule that relies on observations of ravens to confirm its truth. When you see a black raven, it indeed supports the idea that all ravens are black. But what happens when you see something that is not a raven? Say, a green apple. Interestingly, according to the rules of logic, observing a green apple should also be taken as evidence for the claim that all ravens are black. This is where the paradox lies. The logic runs as follows. If something is not a raven, and it is not black, then it supports the general rule that all ravens are black. This is a disconcerting idea, because it implies that our understanding of evidence can stretch beyond what we typically acknowledge. In this scenario, the green apple is irrelevant to the color of ravens, yet its existence seems to strengthen the claim about black ravens. This paradox raises critical questions about how we interpret evidence in our everyday lives. Every day, we make decisions based on our observations, and we rely on generalized rules to guide us. For instance, if you know that most swans are white, you may feel confident in asserting that a swan you've never seen is also likely to be white. But what if you were presented with a black swan? This is where your original belief may falter. The discovery of one black swan leads to a revision of the general rule about swans and reminds us that exceptions exist. The Raven Paradox reflects a broader lesson in critical thinking. It teaches us to be cautious about overgeneralizations and the evidence we accept as sufficient to confirm our beliefs. This becomes especially relevant in an age where information is proliferated at impressive speed. Many conclusions drawn in areas of science, policy, or personal judgments might rely on limited or biased evidence. Now, let's pivot to another area, the world of science. Scientists often seek to form theories based on observations. These theories can be tested through experimentation. For example, if a scientist believes that a certain chemical reaction causes a substance to change color, they will conduct experiments to verify this. In observing many instances of the reaction, they may grow more confident that their theory is correct. However, if they accidentally discover a scenario where the expected outcome does not occur, it creates a need to reassess the theory. This highlights the importance of remaining open to unusual results that may appear irrelevant at first glance. The applications of the Raven Paradox extend into many fields, including philosophy, mathematics, and logic. They also resonate with our daily lives. For instance, consider when a person states that they have an allergy to nuts after experiencing a reaction. If they discover another individual who consumes nuts without issue, this observation would not invalidate their own experience. Their individual reaction is evidence of their allergy, but it does not provide evidence against others who are able to eat nuts without difficulties. In our online age, the paradox is especially relevant with the prevalence of misinformation. Someone may observe a single instance of an event, perhaps finding a negative review of a service, and assume that negative experiences represent the overall quality of that service. This thought pattern mirrors the Raven Paradox. One instance can distort perception, leading to sweeping judgments based on limited evidence. When we discuss evidence, we must remind ourselves about the diversity of experiences and the intricacies involved in drawing conclusions. It becomes essential to gather a wide array of observations to form a more accurate understanding of phenomena. Embracing a spectrum of experiences helps cultivate a more robust comprehension of the world. Ultimately, the Raven Paradox serves as a powerful tool for reflection and critical thought. It nudges us to think about how evidence shapes our beliefs and encourages awareness of cognitive biases that may cloud our judgment. With this understanding, we can strive to remain open-minded, considering various possibilities without hastily drawing conclusions based on insufficient evidence. In effect, the Raven Paradox challenges us to embrace complexity. Life is filled with uncertainties and exceptions, requiring us to adapt our beliefs and knowledge as we gather more information. By engaging with this paradox, we sharpen our ability to think deeply and critically about the evidence we encounter every day. So, as you navigate through your own observations, remember the lessons of the Raven Paradox. Seek out the rich tapestry of information that surrounds you, and let it guide you in forming a more nuanced understanding of the world. In a world characterized by diversity and varying beliefs, society often faces a delicate balancing act known as the paradox of tolerance. At the heart of this concept lies a compelling question. Should a tolerant society extend its arms to embrace intolerance? This dilemma challenges our values and ideals as we strive to cultivate environments where freedom of expression and acceptance flourish. To understand the paradox of tolerance, let's first explore what we mean by tolerance. Tolerance is the acceptance of different beliefs, practices, and identities. It is the acknowledgement that individuals come from distinct backgrounds, and their perspectives can enrich our collective experience. In a tolerant society, people can express themselves freely, engaging in dialogue and sharing their ideas without the fear of persecution. However, the notion of tolerance takes a complex turn when we encounter intolerance itself. Intolerance manifests in various forms, from extreme ideologies to hate speech and discriminatory practices. It often arises from fear, misunderstanding, or a sense of superiority over others. The paradox becomes evident when we realize that extending tolerance to those who promote intolerance can ultimately threaten the very foundations of a diverse society. Imagine a community that prides itself on its openness and acceptance. Artists, activists, and thinkers from various backgrounds come together, sharing their unique contributions and enriching the cultural fabric. However, as this community embraces the spirit of tolerance, they may inadvertently provide a platform for voices that espouse hatred and division. Those who preach intolerance can exploit the very tolerance granted to them, potentially undermining the safety and harmony that the community strives to maintain. This dilemma raises critical questions. How do we protect the values of tolerance without compromising our principles? Should we impose limits on acceptable discourse to shield our society from harm? Striking this balance is challenging because it requires us to consider the implications of our choices. Limiting free expression in the name of protecting tolerance could undermine the democratic ideals that allow for a multiplicity of voices to coexist. Philosopher Karl Popper posed this dilemma in his famous Paradox of Tolerance. He argued that in order to maintain a tolerant society, we cannot tolerate the intolerant. Allowing intolerance to flourish unchecked can lead to the erosion of the very acceptance we wish to promote. By examining this perspective, we are called to reflect on how we can stand firm against intolerance without descending into an authoritarian stance that suppresses debate and discussion. Let us consider real-world examples. Think of a community that hosts public debates on contentious social issues. Such gatherings can be platforms for constructive dialogue, where diverse opinions and perspectives engage in civil discourse. However, if a group that advocates for violent measures or promotes hatred is allowed to participate unhindered, their rhetoric can derail the conversation, inciting fear and creating divisions among attendees. While their right to speak is upheld, the consequences may ripple throughout the community, leading to alienation and distrust. Now, envision an alternative scenario. A society that actively promotes education and understanding to combat intolerance. Programs emphasizing empathy, cultural awareness, and critical thinking skills can equip individuals to navigate disagreements and foster constructive conversation. In this context, while a commitment to tolerance remains, there is also a concerted effort to challenge harmful ideologies through informed discourse. The dangers of intolerance are evident across history, where societies that allowed hate and division to dominate often found themselves in turmoil. An example can be seen in totalitarian regimes that stifled dissent under the guise of maintaining order, creating an environment where only certain thoughts were deemed acceptable. These instances remind us that while the pursuit of tolerance is noble, it requires vigilance and an unwavering commitment to protecting the principles of justice and equality. Navigating the paradox of tolerance entails discernment and courage. It means recognizing when an ideology threatens the well-being of others and asserting a collective responsibility to foster a healthy discourse. Engaging in dialogues that challenge misconceptions and foster understanding is essential. It allows societies to not only address intolerance, but also to cultivate resilience against its encroachment. In conclusion, the paradox of tolerance challenges us to reconsider the dimensions of our communal life. It invites us to reflect on the very principles that guide our interactions and to evaluate the consequences of allowing intolerance to flourish. A truly tolerant society must uphold the values of respect, understanding, and compassion while standing firmly against ideologies that seek to disrupt the harmony of its community. Through education, discourse, and active engagement, we can strive to create a world where diversity triumphs over division, defining our collective identity in ways that affirm our shared humanity. Embracing this complexity opens the doorway to a more just and inclusive society, where varying perspectives contribute to a vibrant tapestry of human experience. In today's world, we are faced with an overwhelming number of choices. From the moment we wake up until we go to bed, every day is filled with decisions. What to wear, what to eat, which route to take to work, and even how to spend our free time. This abundance of options might seem like a luxury, but the reality can be quite different. The paradox of choice suggests that having too many options can actually lead to feelings of anxiety and dissatisfaction rather than fulfillment. Let's think about a simple example. Imagine walking into a cafe that offers just two types of coffee, espresso and cappuccino. The decision is straightforward. You quickly choose one and enjoy it without much second-guessing. Now, picture a different scenario. You walk into another cafe that offers 20 different types of coffee, including exotic blends, various brewing methods, and different milk alternatives. Faced with so many choices, you might find yourself feeling overwhelmed. Instead of delighting in your decision, you could end up second-guessing your choice, wondering if you made the right one, or if another option would have been more enjoyable. Here lies the paradox. With more choices, satisfaction can often decrease. This phenomenon can be explained further by exploring the concept of opportunity cost. Every time we make a choice, we are also forgoing other options. When you chose that cappuccino, you missed out on the possibility of tasting a creamy macchiato or a bold cold brew. With fewer choices, the sense of loss is minimized. But with a plethora of options, that feeling can become magnified. You might start thinking about the coffee you didn't choose while drinking the one you did, impacting your overall enjoyment. This paradox of choice expands beyond coffee selections. Consider the vast world of online shopping. With countless brands, styles, and prices, sifting through options can feel like an exhausting task. A study found that when consumers were presented with 6 varieties of jam, they were more likely to make a purchase compared to those who were presented with 24 varieties. With fewer options, consumers felt more capable of making a decision and ultimately reported higher satisfaction with their purchase. Beyond consumer behavior, the paradox of choice can be seen in other areas of life. Think about relationships. In the past, individuals might have had a more limited pool of potential partners, leading them to nurture deeper connections with those they did meet. In contrast, today's dating apps present a seemingly endless array of profiles to choose from. While this can be exciting, it can also lead to a constant sense of comparison and dissatisfaction. People may find themselves swiping through profiles, feeling as though there's always someone better just one click away, which can hinder genuine connections. Additionally, this paradox can impact our daily lives, influencing our mental well-being. When we are bombarded with choices, it can become difficult to commit to any single path, leading to what's known as analysis paralysis. The pressure to choose the perfect option can cause significant stress, leaving us feeling stuck and frustrated. So, what can we do in the face of all these options? One effective strategy is to set limits on our choices. By narrowing down our options, we can alleviate the pressure to find the best choice. For instance, when planning a meal, instead of browsing endlessly through recipe websites, we might choose 3 recipes in advance and leave it at that. By limiting our choices, we can enjoy the cooking process more and savor the experience without feeling overwhelmed. Another useful approach is to practice gratitude, focusing on the positives of our selected choice rather than the alternatives can help enhance our satisfaction. Rather than lamenting the styles we didn't choose when shopping for clothes, we might celebrate the outfit we did purchase, emphasizing what makes it special. This shift in perspective can transform feelings of dissatisfaction into appreciation. The paradox of choice serves as a reminder that more isn't always better. It invites us to reflect on our own decision-making processes and consider how we might simplify our choices, leading to a more enriching experience in everyday life. In a world teeming with options, finding balance is key. Learning to embrace fewer, more meaningful choices can cultivate a sense of peace and fulfillment, allowing us to enjoy the moments we have without being weighed down by regrets over what might have been. Next time you're faced with a multitude of choices, take a moment to pause. Consider how many options may actually enhance your experience instead of detracting from it. Embrace the possibility of simplifying your choices, and remember that sometimes less truly is more. Epimenides Paradox originates from a fascinating statement made by Epimenides, a philosopher from ancient Crete. This paradox serves as a compelling exploration within the realms of logic and self-reference, illustrating the complexity of truth claims. The paradox specifically unfolds when Epimenides, a Cretan himself, asserts that all Cretans are liars. This assertion brings about an intriguing contradiction. To grasp the implications of this claim, consider the nature of truth and lying. If what Epimenides says is true, then as a Cretan, he himself must also be a liar. This creates a conflict, because if he is a liar, then his statement cannot be true. Conversely, if he is indeed lying, that would mean not all Cretans are liars, which inherently contradicts his original assertion. This gives rise to a logical quandary, prompting one to question the foundations of truthfulness. This paradoxical situation encourages us to think deeply about statements that involve self-reference. For instance, consider the famous statement, "This sentence is false." If the sentence is true, then it must be false as it claims. On the other hand, if it is false, then it must be true. Such self-referential statements can generate similar confusing logic and are intriguing because they challenge our understanding of meaning and truth. Epimenides' paradox exemplifies the tension that can exist within language and reasoning. It highlights how statements about groups, individuals, and their character can spiral into loops of contradiction. This paradox can be linked to broader themes in philosophy and mathematics, revealing the complexities inherent in any kind of system that relies on self-reference. The implications stretch far beyond Epimenides and the Cretan context. In philosophy, discussions about the nature of truth and belief often reference such paradoxes to underscore the fragile nature of human understanding. It raises questions about the reliability of knowledge and perception. Can we trust what someone says if their own declarations place them in a contradictory position? What does it mean for something to be true if truths can lead us into confusion? Additionally, the Epimenides Paradox has practical applications in computer science, particularly in areas like programming logic and artificial intelligence. The logic of self-reference has profound implications for designing systems that make assertions about their own functioning. Systems may encounter similar paradoxes, leading to unexpected errors or unpredictable outcomes when they attempt to process self-referential input. This paradox serves not only as a philosophical puzzle, but as a gateway to deeper explorations of human reasoning and the frameworks we use to communicate and comprehend the world around us. The phenomenon found in Epimenides' statement invites us to reflect on broader cultural and ethical considerations. Ideas about honesty and trust within societies can pivot on similar paradoxes. As people navigate a landscape filled with competing truths and subjective perceptions, when we start to dissect whether a person is reliable based on their affiliations or statements, we find ourselves in a web of assumptions and judgments. This highlights an essential aspect of our social interactions and relationship. Understanding the Epimenides Paradox may inspire a more nuanced perspective on how we approach claims made by individuals and the societies they represent. In exploring the implications of the paradox, we engage with the dialectic of truth and interpretation. The layers of meaning can lead to various interpretations depending on one's philosophical or logical stance. As engaging as the paradox may be, it also seems to echo throughout literature and art, where themes of duplicity and identity often collide. As the lines between truth and deception blur, we embark on a journey of reflection about authenticity. This interplay between honesty and dishonesty resonates through characters in stories, influencing our appreciation of their motivations and complications. The labyrinthine paths of human experience can be mirrored in the way that contradictions arise in thought. By examining the Epimenides Paradox, we can appreciate the intricate dance between certainty and uncertainty that characterizes human thought. Through this lens, the ancient statement holds relevance today, prompting both scholars and laypeople to consider the nature of communication, integrity, and the pursuit of knowledge in an ever-changing landscape. The paradox serves as a powerful reminder that simplicity in truth statements is often deceptive, as the quest for understanding can lead us to unexpected places. Ultimately, this paradox encourages us to embrace the mystery inherent in philosophical inquiry and human interaction. It reveals the depth of thought and the complexities that come with attempting to define our beliefs, identity, and reality. As we ponder these intricacies, we are invited to examine our perspectives and approach the world with curiosity, humility, and openness to the multifaceted nature of truth. Through the enduring legacy of Epimenides, we see the power of ideas to transcend time, inviting us to engage in discussions that examine our understanding of life, identity, and the intricate web of statements that connect us all. In our everyday lives, we often make decisions based on probabilities and likelihoods. Understanding how we evaluate chances can lead us to fascinating insights about human nature and reasoning. One intriguing concept that encapsulates this is the lottery paradox, a thought experiment that highlights the irrationality that sometimes underlies our beliefs and choices. Imagine you are playing the lottery. The odds are heavily stacked against you, perhaps millions to one. You might spend a few dollars on a ticket, feeling a rush of excitement at the thought of winning a life-changing amount of money. Yet, While very few people ever win, you could easily justify the expense by convincing yourself that someone must win it eventually. In this moment, you have accepted a highly improbable event as a plausible outcome, a classic manifestation of the lottery paradox. Now, let's explore this idea further by considering the principle behind probability. When you flip a coin, the odds are even, heads or tails. Each has a 50% chance of occurring. However, if you flip that coin 10 times, the chances of getting exactly 5 heads and 5 tails can be calculated, allowing us to create expectations about outcomes. Such expectations feel more reliable when closely observing smaller samples. But now consider a scenario where the number of events increases drastically, like in the lottery. The paradox lies in the mismatch between rationality and belief. Statistically, playing a lottery with odds of 1 in 10 million would mean that any single ticket has an exceedingly low chance of winning. Logically, if you reflect on your decision to buy a ticket, you should be dissuaded by these odds. Yet the feeling of hope and the dream of winning can often overshadow a rational assessment of those odds. This illustrates our tendency to accept highly improbable beliefs, those that are incredibly unlikely to be fulfilled but still hold emotional weight and appeal. To further illustrate, think of the many times people invest in ideas or opportunities that seem out of reach. Perhaps a person invests in a startup that is unlikely to succeed, combing through hopeful projections and stories of past successes. It's a gamble, with many stakeholders convinced they will strike gold, even in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. This behavior encapsulates the lottery paradox perfectly, even when the rational mind tells you that many factors must align for success. The allure of a potentially monumental win can overpower logic. This paradox extends into other aspects of life as well. Consider the stock market. Investors may hold on to stocks that have plummeted in value, convinced that a turnaround is just around the corner. Despite the persistent downturns and evidence that may suggest a failing company, the belief in a miraculous recovery becomes a strong, influential force in their decisions. Here again, we see the paradox where people cling to improbable beliefs, while rational data suggests caution. Another captivating aspect of the lottery paradox is its implications for risk-taking behaviors. People often overestimate the probability of extreme events occurring. For instance, individuals may fear flying due to crash statistics, despite flying being statistically much safer than driving. However, the overwhelming media coverage of airplane accidents amplifies the perception of danger and reinforces irrational fears, overshadowing a more rational understanding of risk. In social contexts, the lottery paradox can also be witnessed within groups of friends or colleagues. A small company might dream of becoming the next big tech sensation. Each member fervently believes they will be the outlier that defies the odds, driven by narratives of past successes and the charismatic appeal of entrepreneurship. They become entranced in a collective belief, each one holding on to the hope that their startup could be the next unicorn, despite statistical evidence suggesting otherwise. Additionally, cultural narratives play a significant role in shaping how we interpret probabilities. Tales of the American dream promote the notion that anyone, regardless of their background, can achieve great success through hard work and perseverance, creating an almost mythical belief in self-made triumphs. While wonderful in spirit, such narratives can lead to an unrealistic outlook on probability, making improbable events seem much more likely and attainable. As we navigate decisions in life, acknowledging the lottery paradox encourages a critical view of our beliefs. It pushes us to ask why we hold certain hopes and desires, even in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. This reflection can foster a deeper understanding of our motivations and reasoning processes. In conclusion, the lottery paradox serves as a compelling example of the interplay between probability and belief. It serves as a powerful reminder of how easy it is to accept highly improbable events as realistic. This acceptance often arises from emotional influences rather than logical assessments, underscoring the complexities of human behavior. By understanding this paradox, we gain insight into the irrational elements that shape our beliefs and decisions, helping us to navigate the delicate balance between hope and reality. In the grand tapestry of life, these threads of belief, probability, and the pursuit of dreams weave a narrative that is distinctly human, rich with intrigue and nuance. Newcomb's paradox is a fascinating thought experiment in the realm of game theory that raises intriguing questions about prediction, free will, and human decision-making. To understand this paradox, let's first set the stage with a simple explanation. Imagine a scenario where you are presented with two boxes by a superintelligent being, often referred to as a predictor. One box is transparent, referred to as box A, and the other is opaque, called box B. Box contains a sum of money. Let's say $1,000. Box B contains either nothing or $1 million. The twist lies in the fact that the predictor has a near-perfect track record in determining what choice you will make. Before you choose which box or boxes to take, the predictor places the money in the boxes based on a prediction of your decision. If the predictor believes you will only take box B, it will place $1 million inside. And if it thinks you will take both boxes, it will leave box B empty. The situation leaves you pondering. Should you take just box B, hoping for the $1 million, or should you take both boxes, ensuring you get the $1,000 no matter what? The dilemma lies in the clash between two approaches to decision-making. One school of thought, known as expected utility theory, would suggest that the rational choice is to take both boxes. After all, if you do take both, you are guaranteed at least $1,000, regardless of the predictor's accuracy. On the other hand, if you consider the implications of the predictor's accuracy, the strategy of taking only box B seems more promising. Given the predictor's history of success in forecasting decisions, you might conclude that the predictor has likely placed $1 million in box B, meaning that the best outcome is achieved by taking only that box. As we dig deeper into Newcomb's paradox, we encounter broader philosophical implications. It challenges our concepts of free will and determinism. If the predictor can reliably foresee your choices, it raises the question, are your decisions truly your own, or are they predetermined by the conditions of the universe? This paradox ignites a profound debate about human agency and whether we possess the power to choose in the face of foresight. Some enthusiasts of the paradox argue that it highlights the difference between two types of reasoning, causal and non-causal. The causal type focuses strictly on the immediate consequences of actions. In contrast, the non-causal reasoning involves considering the broader implications of decisions, particularly in scenarios where predictions play a crucial role. This distinction is at the heart of the disagreements surrounding how one should approach Newcomb's paradox. When considering the implications of the predictor's knowledge, many find themselves drawn to the idea that our choices might be more than mere reactions to our environment. Perhaps they involve a complex interplay between instinct, logic, and external insights. This notion invites us to explore the boundaries of human understanding and the dynamics of choice. Newcomb's paradox also serves as a springboard for various discussions, extending beyond mathematics and philosophy. It connects deeply with the realms of psychology and behavioral economics. How do people make decisions when faced with conflicting information? How much do we trust our instincts against calculated predictions? Each answer reveals invaluable insights into human behavior and decision-making processes. In exploring Newcomb's paradox, we find ourselves engaging with essential questions about expectation. The expectations set by the predictor, based on its understanding of your behaviors, deepen the narrative. Expectations shape our actions and can guide our results. However, they also highlight the vulnerability of human intuition in the face of calculated foresight. Ultimately, Newcomb's paradox asserts itself as more than just a puzzle. It prompts endless contemplation about the nature of knowledge, the essence of choice, and the intricate dance between determinism and free will. By analyzing how we respond to predictions and addresses the psychological aspects behind decision-making, we gain a richer understanding of our interactions with the world around us. In conclusion, Newcomb's paradox embodies a profound philosophical dilemma, reflecting the complexities of human nature. It encourages both critical thinking and introspection as we grapple with the essence of our choices. Whether it beckons us toward the allure of guaranteed outcomes or invites us to embrace uncertainty in the hope of higher rewards, this paradox remains an enduring exploration of human thought and creativity. So, consider this paradox and reflect upon the nature of your choices, where each decision carries a weight and a potential that echoes beyond the immediate moment. The Abilene Paradox is a fascinating concept that highlights how groups can sometimes make decisions that do not align with the individual preferences of their members. It often occurs when people, in an attempt to please one another or avoid conflict, go along with choices that contradict their own beliefs or desires. The name comes from a story about a family that took a trip to Abilene, Texas, where none of the family members actually wanted to go, but everyone thought the others did. In essence, it's a situation where the whole group misjudges what its members want. Imagine a group of friends deciding where to eat. One person prefers Italian food, while another wants sushi, and yet another has a craving for Mexican. Instead of vocalizing their individual preferences, they all say they are okay with whatever the group decides. After some discussion, they settle on a restaurant none of them is excited about. Everyone quietly agrees to compromise, leading to a meal that leaves them feeling unsatisfied. This is a classic example of the Abilene Paradox in action. This paradox extends beyond casual outings. It can occur in workplaces, organizations, or community groups, where team members might avoid expressing their personal preferences to maintain harmony. In meetings, you may find that one person suggests a particular course of action, and rather than voicing their disagreement, others nod in agreement. Later, when the decision turns out to be less effective or even counterproductive, it becomes clear that many in the room were not on board with the choice. They just didn't want to rock the boat. The beauty of the Abilene Paradox lies in its innate irony. Each individual assumes they are the only one who feels this way. They think everyone else is aligned with the group consensus, creating a false sense of unity. This often leads to collective decisions that are far from optimal, leaving individuals feeling frustrated and detached. One key element that contributes to this paradox is the fear of disapproval. People often want to be seen as agreeable and cooperative. When faced with the prospect of disagreement, they might choose silence over speaking up. This fear can create an environment where dissent is stifled, making it increasingly likely that the group will arrive at a decision that no one actually supports. Another contributing factor is social pressure. When a majority of group members express a preference for a certain direction, Individuals may feel compelled to align with the majority opinion, even if it goes against their personal views. This creates a dynamic where the group's collective decision-making is influenced more by the desire for harmony than by true consensus. To illustrate this further, consider a community meeting where residents discuss whether to build a new park in their neighborhood. While several individuals privately express concerns about safety and maintenance costs, they might remain quiet during discussions, fearing backlash from others who seem enthusiastic about the proposal. The collective result could be the construction of a park that doesn't genuinely reflect the community's needs or desires. The Abilene Paradox serves as a reminder of the importance of communication within groups. It suggests that effective decision-making requires open dialogue, where individuals feel safe sharing their authentic thoughts. Leaders can play a crucial role in this by encouraging an environment that values diverse opinions and welcomes disagreement. Promoting practices such as anonymous feedback or small subgroups can help reduce the fear of speaking up. When individuals know they can share their opinions without facing judgment, they are more likely to express what they truly believe. This leads to better decisions that reflect the genuine preferences of all involved. In a world where group dynamics often dictate our choices, recognizing the Abilene Paradox allows us to reflect on our own decision-making processes. It encourages us to ask ourselves whether we are truly aligned with the choices being made or simply going along to get along. Ultimately, the values of transparency and honest communication guide us toward more beneficial outcomes. The next time you find yourself in a group setting, take a moment to consider the preferences of those around you and whether they are being accurately represented. By fostering a culture of open dialogue, we can work towards choices that truly resonate with everyone involved. As the story of the Abilene Paradox reminds us, the road to agreement might be paved with individual perspectives rather than a unified silence. This shift can empower groups to move beyond mere agreement into thriving collaboration that acknowledges the diverse opinions of all members. When voices are heard and preferences respected, the collective power of the group becomes a vibrant force for positive change. Arrow's paradox is a thought-provoking concept that brings to light the complexities involved in designing a fair voting system. Introduced by economist Kenneth Arrow in 1951, the paradox outlines the challenges that arise when trying to aggregate individual preferences into a collective decision. This situation becomes especially interesting when we consider how diverse and varied human opinions can be. Picture a community of 5 friends who are trying to decide on a movie to watch. Each friend has different tastes, and they all prefer different genres. One friend loves action movies, while another opts for romantic comedies. A third is an avid fan of documentaries, and the remaining 2 friends enjoy thrillers and animated films. When they put all their preferences on the table, it becomes apparent that no single film will satisfy all of them. This scenario serves as a microcosm of the broader idea that Arrow was addressing. Arrow developed specific criteria for what he believed a fair voting system should possess. One of these criteria is called universal domain, meaning the system should allow for all possible individual preferences to be expressed without restrictions. Imagine a voting system where everyone can express their favorites without being limited by the options provided. However, achieving this while maintaining a system that is easy to navigate presents its own difficulties. Another essential criterion is non-dictatorship, which ensures that no single individual's preferences can dictate the outcome of the vote. In our movie example, we wouldn't want one friend to always choose the film, ignoring the preferences of the others. Ideally, their opinions should all carry weight, leading to a movie choice that reflects a consensus rather than the whim of just one person. Next is Pareto efficiency, a term that signifies that if every voter prefers option A over option B, then the overall preference should reflect this. So if all friends believe that watching a specific superhero film is better than the documentary option, then the group should choose the superhero film. Yet, the challenge remains how to measure preferences accurately when tastes vary significantly among individuals. Lastly, Arrow's criteria include independence of irrelevant alternatives. This means that the choice between two options should not be influenced by the introduction of a third, less preferred option. In our example, if a fourth friend suggests a musical that nobody else likes, it shouldn't sway the decision of the original three friends debating between the superhero film and the thriller. Ideally, the vote should simply reflect their preferences without distractions from unrelated options. Arrow proved that no voting system can satisfy all of his criteria simultaneously, leading to what is often called Arrow's impossibility theorem. This realization goes beyond selecting a movie. It has profound implications for political elections, committee decisions, and any situation where collective opinion is required. Just imagine how this affects larger decisions like selecting a leader or drafting policies that govern entire communities. In a political context, envision a country where multiple parties are vying for control. Each party has its agenda, and voters have their preferences. When voters step into the ballot box, they are faced with numerous choices, and their decision-making resembles our movie example, where preferences must be simplified into a choice. When the votes are tallied, the winner may not truly reflect the agenda of the majority, as the voting mechanism can obscure true preferences, resulting in a system that might not feel representative. Arrow's paradox reminds us that while we often seek to create systems that reflect fairness and representation, the complexities of human preference make this far from simple. This paradox becomes even more significant when you consider advances in technology and communication. Social media and online platforms offer more ways for people to voice their preferences. But translating these myriad opinions into a coherent and fair decision-making process remains a significant challenge. Various alternatives have been proposed and experimented with, such as ranked choice voting, where voters can rank their preferences rather than choosing a single option. This method could allow for a broader expression of preferences and can address some of the concerns posed by Arrow's criteria. For instance, if our movie group used ranked choice voting, each friend might list their preferences, which could lead to a more representative outcome that brings together various interests. However, even these alternative voting mechanisms face their challenges. The intricacies of translating individual preferences into a collective decision still display elements of Arrow's paradox, prompting discussions within academic and practical fields about what constitutes a fair system. As we continue to grapple with questions surrounding democracy and representation, Arrow's paradox serves as a foundational concept to consider. It encourages us to think critically about how we express preferences and make decisions collectively. It urges us to acknowledge the limitations of any voting system and inspires continued innovation in search of fairness. Just like choosing a movie, making collective decisions in society will always require balancing various preferences, and this ongoing challenge is what makes the discourse around voting and representation so essential. The paradox of hedonism is a fascinating concept that challenges our understanding of pleasure and happiness. At its core, this idea suggests that when individuals focus solely on the pursuit of pleasure, they might actually find themselves feeling less satisfied in the long run. To illustrate this, let's imagine a scenario with a simple, relatable example. Picture a person who decides to indulge in every pleasure they can think of. This person spends their weekends at lavish parties, indulging in rich foods, and engaging in all sorts of enjoyable activities. Initially, it may seem that they are living the dream life, filled with excitement, joy, and satisfaction. However, as time passes, something curious begins to happen. Instead of feeling more fulfilled, the individual starts to experience a sense of emptiness. The parties grow monotonous. The food loses its flavor, and the thrill of adventure becomes predictable. This scenario serves as a vivid example of how an obsession with immediate pleasure can ironically lead to a decrease in overall happiness. One could compare this to the way we might enjoy a delicious dessert. The first bite of a rich chocolate cake can be heavenly, but if you continue to eat slice after slice, the enjoyment diminishes. Eventually, what was once a delightful experience can turn into regret and discomfort. This phenomenon reveals an interesting truth. Too much pleasure can lead to diminishing returns, meaning that the more we seek it out, the less fulfilling it becomes. Furthermore, consider the difference between short-term enjoyment and long-term contentment. When we chase after fleeting pleasures, we might miss out on deeper, more meaningful experiences. Genuine connections with loved ones, pursuing hobbies that ignite our passion, and engaging in activities that challenge us intellectually or physically can lead to a more profound sense of happiness. These experiences, although they may not provide immediate gratification, often yield greater satisfaction and joy over time. Research in positive psychology supports this paradox. Studies show that individuals who prioritize intrinsic goals, such as personal growth, relationships, and contributing to the community, tend to report higher levels of happiness than those who focus on extrinsic goals like wealth and fame. The irony lies in the idea that when people stop obsessing over the pursuit of pleasure and instead focus on building relationships and experiences, they often become happier. Moreover, the paradox of hedonism can also be observed in the concept of habituation. When we frequently indulge in pleasurable activities, we may become desensitized to them. For instance, someone who often uses substances like alcohol might initially feel a sense of euphoria. Yet, as they continue to indulge, they may find that they need to consume more and more to achieve the same high. This escalating cycle can lead to negative consequences, overshadowing any momentary pleasure with long-term dissatisfaction. In contrast, when we adopt a more mindful approach, where we savor the moments of joy as they come, pleasure can become far more enriching. Imagine the difference between rushing through a meal and taking the time to appreciate each flavor and texture. Mindfulness allows us to experience life more fully, enhancing our enjoyment in the moment and fostering a sense of appreciation that lingers long after the experience has passed. It's also worthwhile to consider the role of delayed gratification in our pursuit of happiness. By postponing immediate pleasures in favor of future rewards, we can achieve a more substantial sense of fulfillment. For instance, instead of spending all our savings on a luxurious vacation, we might choose to invest that money in education or experiences that enrich our lives over time. The journey of personal development and the achievements we earn can create lasting happiness that goes far beyond fleeting indulgence. The paradox of hedonism teaches us that while seeking pleasure isn't inherently bad, an excessive focus on it can lead to a cycle of dissatisfaction. Instead of chasing after pleasure, Focusing on the experiences that bring us true joy and fulfillment is a more fruitful path. This understanding can guide us toward making choices that enhance our lives in meaningful ways, allowing us to find happiness in moments that matter. At the end of the day, it is about finding the balance between pleasure and purpose. When we shift our perspective from chasing after pleasure to nurturing relationships, engaging in personal growth, and appreciating the world around us, we create a rich and fulfilling life. This approach not only helps us navigate the complexities of happiness, but also gives us a deeper understanding of ourselves and our desires, ultimately leading us to a more satisfactory and enriching existence. Thus, the journey of life becomes an exploration of what truly brings joy, not merely in the form of immediate pleasure, but in lasting satisfaction derived from meaningful experiences and connections. In the realm of philosophy and logic, there exists an intriguing conundrum known as Quine's paradox. This paradox highlights the complexities inherent in self-reference and paradoxical statements. At first glance, it may sound like a straightforward riddle, but as we delve deeper, we discover layers of meaning and implications that pique our curiosity. To understand Quine's paradox, let's begin with a simple yet fascinating concept: self-reference. Self-referential statements are those that refer back to themselves in some way. A classic example is the phrase, "This statement is false." If we consider this statement, we face an immediate dilemma. If the statement is true, then what it asserts must hold, meaning it is indeed false. Conversely, if we claim it is false, it must be true. This oscillation between truth and falsehood creates an intriguing loop of uncertainty. Quine's paradox takes this notion a step further. The paradox arises with the specific statement, yields falsehood when preceded by itself. At first, it may seem like a simple claim. However, when we break down the statement, we can see how it ties back to itself, generating a paradoxical situation. If we place the phrase yields falsehood when preceded by itself in front of itself, we are confronted with a contradiction. To clarify, let's consider the implications. If the statement is indeed true, then it must yield falsehood when preceded by itself. However, this very assertion makes it false, leading us to a contradictory conclusion. On the other hand, if it is false, then the reverse must apply, meaning it does not yield falsehood when preceded by itself. Yet, this outcome would point to the statement being true. Such circular reasoning illustrates the chaos that can be unleashed through self-referential logic. This paradox has significant implications in fields such as philosophy, linguistics, and computer science. In philosophy, it prompts deep discussions about truth, meaning, and the nature of language itself. How do we determine truth when our language can lead us into a tangle of contradictions? This question challenges philosophers and logicians to reflect on the foundational principles that underpin our understanding of language. In linguistics, Quine's paradox brings attention to the intricacies of language structure and meaning. It compels us to consider how language can create complex relationships between words, phrases, and sentences, prompting us to think critically about interpretation and context. In a world saturated with language, understanding how statements can reference themselves opens up avenues for deeper exploration of communication. In the domain of computer science, particularly in programming and artificial intelligence, the paradox serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of clarity and consistency in algorithms. Self-referential loops, if not carefully managed, can lead to malfunctioning programs or unexpected behaviors. By studying Quine's paradox, programmers and developers learn the importance of precision in constructing logical systems. Moreover, Quine's paradox has aesthetic implications. It may remind us of the many ways our lives are filled with self-reference, recursion, and reflection. We often find ourselves in situations where our thoughts circle back on themselves. Consider the moment when you ponder a decision and catch yourself thinking about the reasoning behind your own reasoning. Such layers of reflection can create deep insights while simultaneously complicating our thought processes. As we navigate through these philosophical waters, it's essential to recognize the role of paradoxes in stimulating critical thinking. Quine's paradox, like many other paradoxes, invites us to question our assumptions and explore the limits of our understanding. It serves as a reminder that language, while a powerful tool for communication, can also lead us into fascinating quandaries that challenge our perceptions of reality. In addition to its academic context, the paradox can inspire creative endeavors. Writers and artists have long utilized self-reference to craft compelling narratives, creating layers of meaning that resonate with audiences. A character might comment on their own existence, leaving readers pondering the boundary between fiction and reality. This self-awareness can deepen emotional engagement, drawing us into a narrative where the lines are blurred. As we contemplate Quine's paradox, we uncover a deeper appreciation for the complexity of thought and language. Although it can initially appear as just a curious puzzle, unraveling such paradoxes can lead to rich discussions about philosophy, logic, and the way we communicate. Ultimately, Quine's paradox stands as a testament to the power of language and the intriguing twists and turns it can take, inviting us to examine the boundaries of our understanding and embrace the wonders that lie within the world of words. The concept of free will has intrigued thinkers throughout history, prompting them to ask fundamental questions about human nature and the universe. Imagine standing at a crossroads, each path representing a choice. One route might lead to success and happiness, while the other could bring challenges and struggles. It is this very imagery that often conjures our understanding of free will, the ability to make choices that shape our destiny. However, a deeper contemplation arises when we consider determinism, the philosophical position that everything that happens is predetermined by preceding events and natural laws. In a deterministic universe, every decision and action could be seen as the result of prior causes. This leads us to a captivating paradox. Can free will truly exist if our choices are merely the product of predetermined events? Consider a simple analogy. Imagine a set of dominoes lined up in a row. When you push the first one, the entire sequence falls in a predictable manner. Each domino represents an event or choice, influenced by the previous one. If the path of each falling domino is already determined by its position and the angle at which the first domino is pushed, can we claim to have any control over the outcome? In this analogy, each choice we make resembles a domino falling, governed by an intricate web of causality. Philosophers have wrestled with this paradox for centuries. Compatibilism is one prominent approach, suggesting that free will and determinism can coexist. Proponents of this view argue that even if our choices are influenced by prior determinants, we still possess the capacity to act according to our desires and intentions. In this perspective, being free means acting without external constraints, rather than being devoid of influence. For instance, if you choose chocolate over vanilla ice cream, your preference might be shaped by past experiences. However, you still have the freedom to make that choice in that moment. On the other hand, Libertarians in the philosophical context advocate for a more absolute form of free will, insisting that individuals must be the ultimate authors of their actions, rather than mere products of their circumstances. This perspective emphasizes the unpredictability of human choice as a necessary component of genuine freedom. If we are entirely molded by our environment and biology, where does that leave our sense of individuality and agency? When dissecting these ideas further, it's intriguing to explore how our understanding of choices can impact our daily lives. We often feel empowered when making decisions, whether small or significant. The thrill of choosing a route to avoid traffic or deciding what to wear may seem trivial. Yet these moments contribute to our sense of self. Even within a framework of determinism, experiencing the process of decision-making could still instill us with a sense of purpose and agency. Consider the concept of moral responsibility. If every action we take is predetermined, can we still hold individuals accountable for their choices? This question becomes particularly complex in legal and ethical discussions. For instance, if a person commits a crime, understanding the factors leading up to their actions, such as upbringing or mental health issues, may reveal a tapestry of influences that contributed to that moment. However, society still seeks to maintain a system of accountability that balances these influences with a sense of justice. The exploration of free will and determinism invokes not just intellectual musings, but also personal reflection. Imagine a time when you faced a crucial decision and felt the weight of the world on your shoulders. Was it purely a reflection of your desires, or were there external factors nudging you toward a particular outcome? Perhaps that moment gave rise to the idea that experiences, relationships, and past events meld together to create a unique decision-making process. Another fascinating aspect is the role of unpredictability in our lives. Even if determinism were to hold true, small variables could lead to unexpected outcomes. Take the classic example of quantum mechanics, where the behavior of particles can appear random on a subatomic level. This unpredictability raises questions about the broader implications for determinism, and consequently, the nature of our choices. If microscopic events can defy predictability, it hints at the possibility that free will, in some capacity, might also be part of a larger cosmic puzzle. As we navigate through life, we continually engage with the world around us, making choices that reflect our values, beliefs, and desires. This intricate dance of choices invites us to ponder the implications of our freedom, whether in a seemingly deterministic universe or not. The interplay between factors shaping our choices and our personal autonomy creates a rich tapestry of human experience. Ultimately, the paradox of free will invites us to reflect on who we are as individuals and what it means to choose. Whether predestined or the architects of our own paths, the experience of grappling with choices is part of what makes life a compelling journey. It is this exploration, complex and often contradictory, that enriches our understanding of existence. It encourages us to engage with the world around us, celebrating the beauty and uncertainty found within our choices. In this grand narrative of life, the interplay between free will and determinism continues to inspire curiosity, forcing us to confront the essential questions of our existence. In the world of literature and written knowledge, there exists a curious phenomenon known as the Preface Paradox. This concept involves authors who take great pride in their work, claiming to fully believe in every assertion made within their pages, while simultaneously anticipating the presence of errors. This paradox gives rise to profound questions about the nature of understanding, belief, and expectation in the realm of authorship. Picture an author diligently typing away at a desk, pouring their heart and soul into a manuscript. With each sentence, they weave together intricate arguments and stories that reflect their insights, experiences, and knowledge. In their mind, the content flows logically, and the claims they make resonate deeply with their understanding of the subject matter. They write with conviction, believing that their interpretations of the world are not just valid, but essential. However, as the author approaches the end of their work, a peculiar realization dawns upon them. No matter how meticulous they have been, no matter how much research they have conducted, the acknowledgement of human fallibility looms large in their thought. They recognize that despite their best efforts, errors can creep in. Maybe a misquoted statistic finds its way into the text. Perhaps a forgotten detail slips through the cracks. This anticipation of errors creates a dichotomy. They are confident in their assertions, yet humble enough to acknowledge their potential inaccuracies. To illustrate this paradox, think of a seasoned chef preparing a new recipe for the first time. They might thoroughly believe in the flavor combinations and techniques they have employed, yet there's a small voice in their mind warning them of possible missteps. Over-seasoning, undercooking, or perhaps overlooking an ingredient that could elevate the dish further. The chef's experience bolsters their confidence, but it also grants them the wisdom to prepare for unexpected results. This dance between assurance and doubt is foundational to the writing process. An author might draft a bold statement about climate change, for instance, asserting that human activities are the principal driver of recent patterns. They anchor their belief in extensive research, countless studies, and the insights of experts. Yet, they might also recall the evolving nature of scientific understanding and the possibility of new findings that could illuminate unknown variables. They trust their current knowledge while remaining open to correction, embodying the spirit of inquiry that persists in every intellectual pursuit. What emerges from the Preface Paradox is a fascinating interplay between conviction and vulnerability. Authors position their work as a conduit for discussion, growth, and exploration. They invite readers not merely to accept their claims, but to engage critically with the material, to question, challenge, and seek further understanding. This perspective transforms the act of reading into a collaborative journey where ideas are not simply consumed, but dissected and debated. Moreover, the Preface Paradox highlights the importance of humility in the pursuit of knowledge. It serves as a reminder that even the most well-researched texts are open to reinterpretation. Readers may come across a passage and see it through a different lens, informed by their unique experiences and insights. This exchange enriches the dialogue around the subject, ultimately deepening everyone's comprehension. Notably, this paradox is not limited to written works. It permeates various fields, from academia to art. For instance, scientists publish their findings, believing in their interpretations, while recognizing the ever-evolving landscape of discovery. Artists create pieces they believe convey a particular emotion or message, but anticipate that viewers may perceive them differently. The acknowledgement of potential discrepancies enriches the conversation and drives progress. Reflecting on the Preface Paradox can also shift how we approach our own beliefs and assertion. It encourages us to adopt an attitude of openness, to embrace the possibility of being wrong. This can lead to a more profound understanding of any subject, breaking down barriers built by staunch convictions. When we accept that our perspectives may contain flaws, we open the door to collaboration, dialogue, and growth. Embracing the Preface Paradox ultimately enhances our experiences as both creators and consumers of content. Authors who navigate this complex landscape cultivate a sense of authenticity and relatability in their work. Readers, meanwhile, become active participants in the unfolding narrative, bringing their perspectives to the fore and reshaping the dialogue around critical issues. In conclusion, the Preface Paradox serves as a reminder of the complexity of knowledge and the human experience. The delicate balance between confidence in our assertions and a humble acceptance of potential errors empowers us to engage thoughtfully with ideas. As we traverse the pages of books, papers, and other texts, we are reminded that knowledge is not merely a static entity, but a living, breathing conversation that thrives on inquiry, dialogue, and mutual respect. In a world characterized by nuances and uncertainties, embracing this paradox can elevate our understanding and appreciation of the written word and the thoughts it conveys. Imagine you find yourself faced with an intriguing choice that could lead to greater fortune. You encounter two envelopes, each sealed and containing a certain amount of money, but you cannot see inside either one. The rules are simple. One envelope holds a sum of money, while the other contains either the same amount or twice as much. Your task is to choose one envelope to keep. At first glance, the decision seems straightforward. You might think you could simply pick one at random, but the paradox arises when you start to analyze the situation more deeply. Let's explore the thought process and the underlying concepts behind this curious dilemma. Assume you decide to pick one envelope. Let's say envelope A. Inside envelope A, you find a sum of money. Let's say $10, for example. Now, you consider envelope B, which may contain either $5 or $20. This brings about a fascinating moment of contemplation. You realize that envelope B could have a higher amount, but it could also contain a lower amount. To make your decision more strategic, you begin to think about the potential outcomes. If envelope B contains twice the amount of what you found in envelope A, you would be better off choosing it. In this situation, you would have a 50% chance of obtaining more money. On the flip side, there's a 50% chance that it holds less money. Now, suppose envelope A had not just $10, but an even higher amount, say $100. This time, envelope B might hold either $50 or $200. Again, you confront the same dilemma. Should you switch to envelope B, hoping for the larger sum? The math appears to lead you to the conclusion that no matter what amount you discover in envelope A, it seems beneficial to choose envelope B. This view prompts an unsettling realization. If you always prefer switching envelopes based on potential outcomes, you might find yourself in a never-ending cycle of indecision. This paradox creates a fascinating narrative about probability and expectation. You may wonder, how can it be possible that regardless of which envelope you choose, it seems sensible to shift your choice to the other one? To understand better, let's delve into the concept of expected value. When you evaluate your options, you might think about the average amount you could expect to gain. If we assign an equal probability to the outcomes associated with the envelopes, you might calculate the expected value of the second envelope based on what you discover in the first. The expected value is key. You take the current amount in your chosen envelope, let's say $100. You then consider the possible values in the other envelope. The calculation indicates that $50 and $200 average out to $125, which indeed seems better than the $100 you initially found. Thus, each time, you feel compelled to make the switch. Yet, there's a crucial flaw in this reasoning. If you think carefully, the notion of the initial amounts being random means that there's no fixed standard by which to judge these expectations. If you keep switching, you might never find yourself with more money than you could have had originally. The paradox lies in this very contradiction. The two envelopes paradox serves as a bridge between intuitive reasoning and mathematical logic. It forces us to question our assumptions about probability and expectation. As with many thought experiments, it shines a light on the complexities of decision-making in uncertain situations. Philosophers and mathematicians have pondered this paradox from various angles, leading to fascinating discussions about strategies in gambling, financial decisions, and even game theory. How should one make choices when faced with uncertainty? This paradox illustrates the struggle between intuition and analytical thinking, often leading us to unexpected conclusions. In the world beyond the paradox, we encounter situations every day that echo this theme. Consider gambling games that promise luck and unpredictability. Each time you make a wager, you're faced with probabilities that can shift based on the choices you make and the information you possess. Betting might lend itself to more straightforward calculations, but even so, the essence of expectation and choice carries over from this envelope dilemma. Furthermore, the overarching theme of uncertainty can be found in personal decision-making as well. When faced with options in life, whether it's career choices or investments, we regularly engage in a form of this paradox. The choices we make often rely not just on the tangible outcomes we see, but also on the potential possibilities that lie beyond what we directly experience. This delightful puzzle encourages not just mathematical exploration, but also broader reflection on how we navigate the uncertain nature of our world. The two envelopes paradox isn't merely about envelopes filled with money. It's a testament to the complexity of our thoughts, our choices, and the nature of fortune itself. With each decision we face, we confront a labyrinth of potential outcomes, weighing them in our minds while simultaneously hoping for the best. In the end, understanding the paradox allows us to embrace uncertainty rather than fear it, reminding us that curiosity and inquiry often lead to deeper insights about life's unpredictable nature. The journey of learning through such conundrums enriches our understanding, shapes our decisions, and ultimately influences the paths we choose to embark upon. Moore's paradox presents an intriguing conundrum as it challenges the relationship between belief and assertion. At its core, the paradox arises from a simple yet perplexing statement. It's raining, but I don't believe it is. To unpack this, we first need to consider the nature of belief and how it aligns with our assertions about reality. Imagine you walk outside on a rainy day, feeling the droplets against your skin. You see the puddles accumulating on the sidewalk and the sky is laden with clouds. In this scenario, asserting that it is raining seems straightforward and reflects an observation grounded in reality. Everyone around you would likely agree, nodding in affirmation of what is, quite evidently, happening. However, if you then add, "But I don't believe it is," a peculiar tension arises. How can one acknowledge a fact while simultaneously rejecting belief in that fact? This situation challenges the coherence of our understanding of beliefs. When a person asserts that it is raining, they are making a statement about the world that is either true or false. An assertion, in general, carries the implication that the speaker holds a corresponding belief. That is, if one asserts something to be true, it is natural to infer that they believe it. This is where Moore's paradox becomes particularly interesting. The conflict emerges because it seems inherently contradictory to make a statement about reality while simultaneously denying the belief that underlies that assertion. To illustrate further, consider another example. Envision a scenario where someone might pause during a crucial moment in a chess game. They analyze the board, looking carefully at each piece, each potential move. After some contemplation, they decide, the best move is to advance my knight, but then add candidly, "However, I don't believe that's the best move." Here too, the assertion clashes with the belief. When determining the best course of action based on logical reasoning and strategic understanding, how can one arrive at a conclusion, yet lack the belief in the rationale supporting it? At this point, we might ponder why this paradox matters. The implications of Moore's paradox extend beyond mere linguistic missteps. They invite deeper reflection about how we understand our thoughts and assertions. For instance, philosophers have long been captivated by what it means to hold contradictory beliefs. If we accept that assertions typically reflect our beliefs, then how do we account for these dissonances? This paradox encourages us to explore the boundaries of belief and speech, leading us to examine the complexities of human cognition. Philosophers such as G.E. Moore, from whom this paradox derives its name, were particularly focused on the intricacies of assurance and conviction. Moore challenged the notion that beliefs must always align with one's assertions, postulating that it is possible for individuals to make statements that are true about the world while holding contradictory or conflicting beliefs. This notion opens up a realm of questions about self-awareness and cognitive dissonance. How do we navigate instances where we feel compelled to state a truth, yet grapple with uncertainty or disbelief? In everyday life contexts, we experience these moments frequently. Imagine talking with a friend who just gave a heartfelt speech at a gathering. You may confidently say, "That was a touching moment," while wrestling internally with personal doubts about the impact of the speech. This dichotomy illustrates how our articulated truths may not always reflect our subconscious hesitations or apprehensions. Moore's paradox strikes at the heart of this delicate balance, highlighting that our outer words do not always map neatly onto inner beliefs. Furthermore, consider the realm of science, where hypotheses are tested rigorously. A scientist might proclaim, "The data suggests a significant correlation," while privately holding reservations about the interpretation of the results. Here, the paradox comes to life within the framework of inquiry and skepticism. The assertion made is based on empirical evidence, yet there may exist an underlying belief that is cautious, provisional, or even contrary. As we navigate our daily interactions and engage with others, Moore's paradox serves as both a reminder and a catalyst for deeper self-exploration. It prompts us to reflect on the truths we assert and the beliefs we carry within. It incites questions such as, how often do we communicate an idea we are uncertain about? How do societal expectations influence what we choose to express versus what we hold in private thought? Engaging with Moore's paradox encourages us to approach conversations with a nuanced understanding of belief and assertion. It challenges us to acknowledge the complex web of thoughts that underlie our expressions, prompting us to embrace the intricate nature of human psychology. As you reflect on assertions you encounter and make, allow the possibility of complexity to resonate, accepting that within each statement there may lie a tapestry of beliefs waiting to be unraveled. Embrace the complexity and revel in the richness of discourse that emerges when we scrutinize the delicate interplay between assertion and belief. The Omnipotence Paradox is a fascinating concept that has intrigued philosophers, theologians, and thinkers throughout history. At its core, it poses a simple yet profound question. Can an all-powerful being create a task that it cannot accomplish? To explore this paradox, let's first understand what we mean by omnipotence. An omnipotent being is one that has unlimited power and the ability to do anything that is logically possible. This means that such a being can create worlds, alter reality, and perform miracles beyond human comprehension. However, the paradox arises precisely from this definition. If we accept that an all-powerful entity can do anything, it should be capable of creating a task so monumental that even it cannot complete it. Imagine a scenario where this being decides to create a massive stone so heavy that it cannot lift it. If it can successfully create this stone, then it is confronted with a dilemma. If it cannot lift the stone, it seems to contradict its nature of being all-powerful. On the other hand, if it cannot create such a stone, the being also appears to lack the full extent of its power. This creates a paradox that challenges our understanding of limits and capabilities. Philosophers have approached this paradox from multiple angles. Some suggest that true omnipotence does not include the ability to perform logically contradictory actions. For instance, creating a square circle or performing an action that nullifies its own existence may not be a reflection of a lack of power, but rather an indication that these tasks lie outside the realm of logical possibility. Therefore, an omnipotent being does not fail in its nature. Rather, it operates within the boundaries of logic and coherence. Throughout history, different cultures and traditions have grappled with the concept of omnipotence. In many religious texts, God is portrayed as an omnipotent entity capable of miracles and creation. However, the narratives often emphasize that this power is not arbitrary. Instead, it follows a divine logic, working towards a purpose that transcends human understanding. This interpretation offers a resolution to the paradox by suggesting that omnipotence is not about the ability to perform the impossible, but rather the capacity to achieve what is ultimately intended. Another perspective considers the relationship between freedom and power. If an all-powerful being were to create a task it could not accomplish, it would imply a limitation on its freedom to exercise power. In a sense, it raises questions about the nature of free will. The exercise of power may involve choosing to do certain things while refraining from others. In this light, omnipotence may encompass the wisdom to choose not to engage in paradoxical tasks. The implications of the Omnipotence Paradox extend beyond philosophical circles into areas like ethics and governance. The idea of unlimited power raises critical questions about authority and its exercise. If a government or leader were considered all-powerful, what would prevent them from creating laws or actions that contradict their own authority? This reflection allows us to consider checks and balances that are essential for justice and fairness. Interestingly, the discourse surrounding the Omnipotence Paradox can also lead to discussions about human limitations. Although we may not be omnipotent, understanding our own capacities and constraints can guide our actions and decisions. Striving for excellence, acknowledging our boundaries, and recognizing when to seek assistance reflect a balance of power and humility. In literature and art, the theme of omnipotence and its paradoxes surfaces prominently. Characters often wrestle with immense power, struggling against their own limitations and making tragic mistakes. These narratives appeal to audiences because they echo fundamental truths about our nature, our aspirations, our fears, and our inevitable mortality. Consider the character of Prometheus, who defied the gods by giving fire to humanity. His act of kindness resulted in severe consequences, highlighting the complexities of power and the unintended ramifications that can arise from even the noblest intentions. This theme resonates across cultures, illustrating the thread of caution woven into human ambition. In mathematics and logic, similar discussions invite further exploration. The boundaries of what can and cannot be proved or achieved reflect a kind of omnipotence paradox. For instance, in Gödel's incompleteness theorems, it is illustrated that in any sufficiently powerful mathematical system, there are truths that cannot be proven within the system. Thus, even concepts rooted in mathematical omnipotence grapple with the acknowledgement of inherent limits. Overall, the Omnipotence Paradox is more than just an intellectual exercise. It invites us to reflect on the nature of power, purpose, and existence. By examining this concept, we gain insights into our own limitations and aspirations. It challenges us to think critically about authority, creation, and the unforeseen consequences of our choices. As we engage with the implications of this paradox, we find ourselves embarking on an endless journey of exploration, illuminating the complexities of existence and the mysteries that lie just beyond our understanding. Imagine for a moment you are at a gathering, surrounded by laughter and chatters, engaged in delightful conversations with friends. As you glance around, you may notice that some of your friends seem to have larger circles of acquaintances. It leads to an interesting realization that might seem counterintuitive at first: the phenomenon known as the friendship paradox. This is the idea that, on average, your friends have more friends than you do. How can that be true? Let's delve into this intriguing social concept and uncover its underlying dynamics. At its core, the friendship paradox stems from how networks of connections work, particularly in social groups. Each person is a node in a vast network, connected to others by ties of friendship. This network is not evenly distributed. Some individuals attract more friends due to various factors, such as personality, social skills, or even opportunity. When you look around, it becomes a matter of statistics rather than simple personal observation. The crux of the paradox lies in how friendships are counted. Those who possess a larger number of friends contribute disproportionately to the average number of friends. For instance, if you have a handful of close friends, and one of them is a social butterfly with many acquaintances, their extensive connections can skew the perception of the typical friends network. Imagine having just 4 friends, while one of them has 20. In this dynamic, when you calculate the average, it becomes clear. Your circle may seem small in comparison. Now let us examine why this paradox exists through a practical example. Picture a small town where most people know each other. If you are someone who is relatively reserved and prefers intimate gatherings, you may find yourself with a tight-knit group of friends, let's say 5 in total. Meanwhile, there is another individual in town who enjoys meeting new people and has social gatherings every weekend. This person might have a network that includes 50 friends. The more outgoing you are, the likelihood increases that you'll attract even more friendships, thus creating a ripple effect in the community. Your connections with others can generate a fascinating web of acquaintances that often feels like a multiple-layered cake. Take a layer of frosting for the people you interact with regularly, and beneath that, there are people your friends connect with, adding more layers to the cake. Through this lens, the interactions can lead you to consider the way friendships can expand and evolve based on personality traits and situational opportunities. Another aspect contributing to the friendship paradox is how social networks tend to cluster. Certain individuals are often viewed as hubs of social activity. When you attend events, these hubs emerge as popular figures surrounded by numerous relationships. If you are a friend of a hub, it may seem like your circle is smaller, especially when you notice their multitude of friends. Remarkably, the nature of these hubs plays a role in the interconnectedness of groups, revealing why it might feel that your friends are more popular. One avenue to explore is how social media impacts this paradox. In a digital world where connections can be made with a simple click, individuals often have hundreds or even thousands of virtual friends. Yet, the quality of these connections differs. Some people are adept at cultivating online relationships, while others might prefer deep, meaningful friendships with a select few dowry. This disparity creates a situation where the perceptions of friendship can be amplified in a digital environment, thus enhancing the time frame of the friendship paradox. Now, think about the implications of this paradox on our feelings and self-esteem. As we engage with the idea that our friends may have a broader social reach, it can sometimes induce feelings of inadequacy or loneliness. However, it is important to remember that friendship is not entirely about numbers. Emotional connections, shared experiences, and loyalty weigh far more heavily in the quality of friendships than mere statistics. Understanding the friendship paradox invites us to reflect on the nature of relationships and social dynamics. It encourages us to appreciate the depth of our connections with others rather than focusing solely on the quantity of acquaintances we possess. Whether through laughter at a dinner table, quiet moments shared over coffee, or adventurous outings with friends, it is the quality of these experiences that enrich our lives. In conclusion, the friendship paradox offers a window into the captivating world of social networks, challenging our assumptions about friendship and connection. It serves as a reminder that while our social circles may vary in size, the true essence of friendship lies not in the number of friends we possess, but in the meaningful connections we cultivate with those we hold dear. Embrace your circle, celebrate the bonds you share, and cherish the unique experiences that come with every friendship, be it large or small. Imagine you are standing in a room filled with gadgets and high-tech devices. In the center, there's a sleek machine that looks like it has been pulled straight from a science fiction movie. This machine is known as a teleporter, capable of moving objects or people instantaneously from one place to another. While the concept of teleportation has captured the imagination of many, it also brings forth intriguing philosophical questions, particularly regarding personal identity. At the heart of the teleportation paradox lies the question, what does it mean to be you? Consider a scenario where you step into the teleportation machine in New York City and, in an instant, you find yourself in Tokyo. But what if, as you get transported, your original body is scanned, and every detail of your physical being and memories is digitally recorded? The machine then reconstructs your body atom by atom in Tokyo, making it seem as though you simply vanished from one location and appeared in another. This scenario begs the question of whether the person who emerges in Tokyo is the same person who stepped into the machine. If your physical body is reassembled with the exact same memories and personality traits, is this new entity still you? In essence, this raises a critical point about continuity of consciousness. Can a person be considered the same individual if they were essentially rebuilt from scratch in a different location? Philosophers have often debated the nature of identity. Some argue that personal identity is tied solely to the continuity of consciousness. According to this view, as long as your thoughts, memories, and experiences remain intact, your identity persists, regardless of the physical form you take. By this reasoning, the teleported version of you in Tokyo may indeed be recognized as the same person you were in New York. On the other hand, critics of this idea suggest that identity is inextricably linked to the physical body. They argue that even if the teleported version of you has the same memories and personality, it lacks the original experiences tied to your first physical form. Think of it like this. If a painter creates a copy of a famous painting, is that copy truly the original? Many would argue that, while it may look the same, it lacks the very essence that made the original unique. Let us consider another example involving a fictional character. Imagine a character in a book that undergoes a transformation. As they journey through different experiences and learn new lessons, they become a different person in thought and action. Yet, the character maintains their name and history. Is this character still the same individual who began the story? Or have they evolved into someone entirely distinct? Teleportation offers a unique twist on this narrative. What if, in the teleporter, you're not just relocated physically, but also temporally? Suppose the machine, while reconstructing you, accidentally alters a memory or replaces a thought. The human mind is intricate, and even slight changes can dramatically influence behavior or perspective. Would the person in Tokyo still be you if they held different beliefs or made different choices? Let's take a look at a more nuanced angle on this topic. Imagine multi-dimensional travel, where one teleports not just across space, but across realities. What if each teleportation leads to a version of you in which your life took a wildly different path? Perhaps in one reality you chose to pursue art, while in another you became a scientist. Every teleportation introduces variations of you, each with distinct experiences and choices. Does the core of your identity remain constant through these fluctuating identities, or do these different experiences fracture your sense of self? Additionally, let's delve into the implications of teleportation technology. Consider its potential impact on interpersonal relationships, family dynamics, friendships, and even romantic connections. All rely on shared experiences and memories. If one were to teleport frequently, would it create a disconnection from loved ones? Would they feel as if you have changed, or would the continuity of shared memories bridge the gap? As these questions unfold, they challenge our traditional understanding of what it means to be human. They prompt deep reflection about the interplay between the mind and the body. The idea of teleportation serves not only as a fascinating concept within science fiction, but also as a profound philosophical exploration. For some, the notion of teleportation sparks excitement and wonder, the possibility of visiting distant worlds in the blink of an eye. For others, it raises uncomfortable questions about existence and our intrinsic understanding of self. Ultimately, the teleportation paradox encourages us to consider our identities and the attributes that define who we are. In keeping with the spirit of exploration, we can also think about future advancements. As technology continues to advance, who knows what the future holds? Will we one day have actual teleportation? And how might it redefine our understanding of existence? Will traditional notions of life and individuality evolve alongside it? As we ponder these possibilities, we also uncover profound truths about the human experience, urging us to reconsider not only how we relate to technology, but also how we perceive ourselves and each other in this ever-expanding universe. The paradox of value is a fascinating concept that explores the relationship between the utility of a good and its market price. It presents a curious situation where essential items, such as water, are often very inexpensive, while non-essential items, like diamonds, command high prices. Understanding this paradox can provide deep insights into human behavior, economics, and the value we attribute to different goods. At first glance, this might seem counterintuitive. One would naturally expect that items crucial for survival, like food, water, or basic clothing, would be more costly than luxury items that serve mainly for decoration or status. However, the price of a good is not solely determined by its importance to our lives. Instead, value is influenced by factors such as scarcity, demand, and the idea of marginal utility. Let's take water as an example. Water is a fundamental resource necessary for life. It hydrates our bodies, sustains crops, and is crucial for countless domestic and industrial uses. Despite its importance, it is relatively cheap. In many parts of the world, people can access clean drinking water at little to no cost. The primary reason for this is abundance. In many regions, water is plentiful. Because it is widely available, its price remains low, despite how essential it is for our well-being. This situation illustrates the concept of marginal utility, which explains that the value of a product is determined by the additional benefit we receive from consuming one more unit of that product. Now, consider diamonds. Diamonds are not essential for survival. They do not provide food, shelter, or necessary warmth. However, they are highly valued and can be extraordinarily expensive. Why is that? The answer lies in their rarity and how society perceives their value. Diamonds are mined deep within the earth, and the process of extracting them is labor-intensive and complex. This scarcity, combined with the strong marketing campaigns that associate diamonds with luxury, love, and status, leads to their high prices. Here, the idea of perceived value plays a significant role. Diamonds offer aesthetic qualities and societal meanings that go beyond their physical properties. One of the most intriguing aspects of the paradox of value is the concept of utility versus necessity. While something like water has immense utility, its abundance means that each additional unit does not add significantly to our overall satisfaction or utility. In contrast, because diamonds are scarce, the satisfaction derived from each new diamond can feel quite significant. This creates a scenario where the abundance of essential resources leads to lower valuations, while the scarcity of luxury items drives prices upward. This distinction can also be applied to other goods. For instance, consider oxygen. Like water, it is essential for life and is widely available. Even though it is critical for our existence, we do not pay for it in the same way we do for food or clothing, which have varying qualities and prices based on place and preference. Conversely, think about luxury brands. Items such as designer handbags or high-end electronics are heavily marketed and often come with high price tags, despite not fulfilling vital needs. These products thrive on the principles of status and exclusivity, further heightening their perceived value. You can see this principle at play in various sectors. The agricultural market often experiences fluctuations in commodity prices based on seasonal availability. For instance, during a drought, the price of crops can skyrocket, reflecting their scarcity, even if their utility to consumers remains constant. On the other hand, during a bountiful harvest, prices may plummet, regardless of the persistent necessity for food. The exploration of the paradox of value ultimately leads to profound implications on consumer behavior. The principles of psychology and economics intertwine to shape how we think about worth. While we understand the significant role water plays in our lives, society often places a higher value on items that are marketed as symbols of success or beauty. In conclusion, the paradox of value challenges us to rethink conventional beliefs about worth. It reveals that necessity does not always equate to high prices, while luxury does not always require practical use. Our perceptions, societal meanings, and the conditions of supply and demand collide and create a complex tapestry of value. By understanding this dynamic, we can appreciate the nuances of the market and the complex interplay of life's essentials and luxuries. This debate over value deepens our understanding of what we hold dear and how society defines its treasures. As you reflect on these ideas, consider the intricate ways in which economics, society, and human psychology influence what we deem valuable, illustrating the fascinating duality of our everyday choice. The lottery ticket paradox presents a fascinating look at the human mind's relationship with probability and belief. Imagine a situation where you buy a lottery ticket and deep down you have a strong belief that this ticket will not win. You know the odds are heavily stacked against you, often millions to one. Yet, when you're surrounded by others, each holding their tickets, you observe that they share a different perspective. They foster an unyielding hope and confidence that their ticket might be the one that defies the odds. This paradox is intriguing because it hinges on the contrast between individual belief and collective outcomes. Let's break it down. Individually, people understand that the chances of winning are exceedingly low. They know the statistics, perhaps even paying attention to the history of lottery outcomes. As such, they feel a sense of realism about their ticket. They mentally accept that it will most likely be another entry that goes to waste. Now, consider the impact of group dynamics. When people come together, even while holding a ticket they suspect is unworthy, the atmosphere shifts. Enthusiasm seems infectious. You observe your neighbor's ticket, and perhaps they share a story of a previous win. Naturally, that can spark a flicker of optimism within your own heart. You might glance at others and see them reacting with joy, excitement, or hopefulness as they collectively buoy one another's spirits. It raises a perplexing question. How can so many individuals believe so passionately in their tickets, despite knowing the probabilities? This is where the paradox lies. While everyone understands on a logical level that winning is improbable, they still invest in their belief, clinging to a faint hope. The irony is that, for every single ticket held, someone, somewhere will indeed win. Yet, each individual faces the reality that their particular ticket is probably a loss. Consider this analogy. Think of a huge bus filled with passengers traveling to a destination. Each person on the bus knows that the odds of them being chosen as the next driver are very slim. They are a passenger, after all. However, in that moment of waiting together, they all share the belief that one of them will eventually take the wheel. In their minds, someone among them will emerge from the crowd to be the chosen one. They might daydream about what it would be like to drive, to feel in control, and to steer their destiny, even if they realize they might not have the chance. The same applies to lottery tickets. Each ticket purchased represents a small investment of hope, a dream of what could be. This manifests in shared excitement as drawings approach. People begin imagining their dreams, whether that entails traveling the world, buying a new house, or donating to charity. They ride a roller coaster of emotions fueled by the positive energy floating among the crowd. This scenario can also be looked at from a psychological perspective. People often exhibit an innate desire to belong and share experiences with others. The lottery ticket becomes a vehicle for this sense of community. In a room filled with friends, family, or even complete strangers, the anticipation builds collectively. While each individual may doubt their chance, their belief intertwines with others in a fabric of shared dreams and passions, weaving a narrative that both entertains and inspires. As the lottery drawing progresses, there is always that moment of anticipation. The numbers are drawn, and the tension in the air is palpable. If one does win, an outburst of joy spreads through the crowd, a moment of celebration. However, that shared excitement often coexists with other voices that echo uncertainty or disappointment. After all, it is a tricky balance. You may have bought a ticket that feels more like a gamble than anything else. Knowing the dangers of investing too much hope in something so uncertain has a sobering effect, yet the thrill of possibility draws you in. This paradox illustrates the interplay between rational thinking and emotional investment. Despite the odds, there's a magnetic allure to the idea of winning, encouraging individuals to engage in this social phenomenon. The lottery ticket paradox unveils the complexities of hope, belief, and collective psychology. It captures the essence of the human experience. We concurrently live with reason and hope, navigating the fine line between reality and aspiration. Through this shared journey, we find that the act of playing, dreaming, and believing in possibility holds a significant value, independent of the outcome itself. In that sense, as much as you might think your ticket is destined to lose, there's something undeniably uplifting about the belief that someone, somewhere, will triumph. And in the end, that collective believing reigns supreme, a testament to our resilience and dreams. In a small town, a dispute sparked a fascinating legal conundrum known as the Paradox of the Court. This peculiar situation involves a student who seeks to compel a teacher to pay a debt, leading to a labyrinth of legal contradictions that can baffle the mind. Imagine a diligent student, eager to learn and invest in their education. They've spent a significant amount of time studying under a particular teacher who ignites their passion for mathematics. The student initially agrees to pay the teacher a fee for additional tutoring, convinced that this investment will enhance their academic career. However, as time progresses, the student realizes that the tutoring sessions have not provided the expected value for the money spent. Feeling slighted, the student decides to take legal action. The courtroom becomes a stage for this peculiar drama. The student argues that the teacher has not fulfilled their responsibilities, claiming that the lessons lacked the depth and insight promised. On the other hand, the teacher stands firm, insisting that the student agreed to the terms, and that the responsibility ultimately lies with the student to embrace and benefit from the education offered. This sets the stage for a complicated legal battle that captivates those in attendance. As the case unfolds, the paradox begins to reveal itself. The student must prove that the teacher deserves to be held accountable for the lessons provided. However, if the student successfully argues their case and wins the judgment, it would imply that the teacher did not fulfill the contract. Conversely, this very outcome would also suggest that the student, having knowingly engaged in the agreement, had failed to appreciate the gravity of their educational choices. Herein lies the contradiction. If the student wins, they prove their own negligence in entering the agreement, thereby undermining their victory. The courtroom begins to overflow with discussion as legal experts and spectators ponder the implication. The judge, trying to mitigate the tension, notes the irony of the situation. This legal tug-of-war is not just about the money. It becomes a philosophical exploration of accountability, responsibility, and the nature of agreements. For an individual to claim rightness, they must also accept the consequences of their actions, or they risk falling into a circular argument with no resolution. The audience observes nuances in language and reasoning as each side grapples with the criteria for justice. The teacher's defense hinges on one vital point. If a student enters into a financial agreement, they inherently subject themselves to the terms, and thus cannot seek retribution for their own poor judgment. The back and forth continues, with eloquent arguments presented on both sides. Advocates for the teacher stress the importance of personal responsibility. They argue that education is not solely the transfer of knowledge, but a mutual commitment where both teacher and student must engage earnestly. They emphasize that the value of education often lies in the effort put forth, rather than the monetary exchange. On the flip side, supporters of the student passionately contend that teachers must hold a standard of excellence and accountability. They argue that education is as much about the teacher's commitment to the student's success as it is about the student's initiative. Every child, they assert, deserves to receive the full benefit of their educational investment. As the trial progresses, both sides prepare to present their crucial final arguments. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation. Each party recognizes that the decision rendered will not only impact their lives, but could also cast a long shadow over future educational agreements. In a surprising twist, the judge decides to take a proactive approach. Instead of leaping straight into a verdict, they propose an alternative, a mediated resolution. The judge suggests that both parties consider a more collaborative approach, a meeting of minds to re-establish their agreement with clearer terms of expectations and responsibility. This moment emphasizes that sometimes solutions to dilemmas lie not in rigid rule-following, but in open dialogue and understanding. Through this mediation, both the student and teacher find an opportunity to redefine their roles and responsibilities. This resolution not only addresses the immediate concerns, but also opens broader conversations about the educational system and how students and teachers can cultivate a more enriched learning environment together. As the courtroom exits fill with soft murmurs and reflections, the implications of this case linger in the air like a thought-provoking breeze. The paradox of the court serves as a reminder of the intricacies of agreements, the essence of accountability, and the need for clarity in all our engagements. While the trial itself may close, the discourse it fosters can inspire a new way of thinking about education, responsibility, and the powerful relationship between students and teachers. Ultimately, the paradox of the court illustrates that in life's agreements, the lines between accountability and responsibility can often blur, prompting us to consider the implications of our actions, not just for ourselves, but for those we enter into agreements. Through this exploration, we navigate the complexities of human interaction, learning that understanding and collaboration often pave the way toward resolution and growth. Imagine two twins, Alice and Bob, who live in a world where the laws of physics, as we know them, can sometimes seem quite strange. In their everyday lives, they experience time in a linear way. They celebrate birthdays, enjoy yearly family gatherings, and watch the seasons change, just like anyone else. However, their lives take an exciting twist when science pulls them into the fascinating realm of relativity, specifically a phenomenon known as the twin paradox. The story begins with a scientific breakthrough, where Bob decides to embark on a journey into the cosmos. He hops into a spacecraft equipped with the technology to travel at speeds that are a significant fraction of the speed of light. Meanwhile, Alice decides to stay on Earth, continuing her life as normal. This simple decision is the crux of their extraordinary journey through time and space, steeped in the principles of Einstein's theory of relativity. As Bob accelerates and eventually reaches near light speed, something remarkable occurs. According to the theory of special relativity, time behaves differently depending on how fast one is moving compared to another. For Bob, traveling close to the speed of light, time appears to slow down considerably. He might experience mere months on his journey, exploring distant stars and marveling at the wonders of the universe. In contrast, Alice, who remains firmly planted on Earth, continues to live at the normal pace of life. Days turn into weeks, weeks into years, and as time marches on, her life unfolds in a way we might consider typical. Now, picture Bob weaving through the fabric of space, witnessing dazzling supernovae and swirling galaxies while his clock ticks slowly compared to Alice. After what he perceives as a brief adventure, he decides it is finally time to return. His excitement builds as he recalibrates his ship and sets a course back to Earth. Meanwhile, Alice has been living a full life, attending milestones, gaining experiences, forming memories, essentially either aging or accumulating the knowledge of her years. When Bob touches down back on Earth, the moment he steps out of his spacecraft, he is met with a shocking realization. While he may feel as youthful as when he left, Alice has significantly aged during his time in space. She might greet him with the wise and knowing smile of someone who has lived through years' worth of experiences, while Bob still embodies the essence of a carefree explorer. Their reunion is a heartfelt moment marked with astonishment, sparked by the strange and mind-bending implications of time dilation, the difference in how time is experienced based on velocity. This scenario introduces us to an incredible aspect of reality. That time is not a fixed entity. Instead, it is elastic, wrapping around the fabric of space in such a way that different observers can experience it differently based on their relative speeds. Many might find this perplexing, as our daily experiences imply that time is uniform for everyone. However, the twin paradox invites us to rethink our understanding of time itself. Let us delve a bit deeper into the mathematical underpinnings of this phenomenon. According to Einstein's equations, the relationship between time and speed can be illustrated with simple calculations. The closer an object approaches the speed of light, the more pronounced the effects of time dilation become. While Bob feels an hour has passed on his journey, multiple hours or even years could have slipped by for Alice. This is not merely theoretical. It has been tested and observed through experiments involving high-speed particles and precise atomic clocks. Now, one might ask why this is referred to as a paradox. At first, it seems logical that if Bob is moving faster, he should age quicker due to the passage of time. This is where it gets intriguing. The term paradox arises because it challenges our intuitions and our understanding of simultaneity, how different observers perceive events occurring at the same time. In the realm of relativity, simultaneity is not absolute. Depending on their frame of reference, two observers can disagree on the timing of events. As we explore the twin paradox, it also prompts deeper questions about the nature of existence and how we measure the world around us. Does time itself have a fundamental meaning, or is it merely a construct that varies based on perspective? This tale of Alice and Bob nudges us to listen closely to the universe, to consider not just how we experience time, but how intricately it binds us all together in this vast and magnificent cosmos. Through the eyes of the twins, we grasp a glimpse of the wonder embedded in the universe. Their story serves as a reminder that there is much we have yet to understand. As we look to the stars, the question of time continues to captivate the minds of scientists and dreamers alike. In this thrilling journey of imagination and inquiry, we become explorers of a different kind, crafting journeys through the essence of existence itself, where every moment matters just as much as the next. Indulging in this exploration leaves us with a profound sense of appreciation for the delicate dance of time and space, painting our lives with experiences that are uniquely our own. The paradox of inquiry is a fascinating concept that raises intriguing questions about knowledge, curiosity, and the very essence of understanding. At its core, this paradox invites us to consider how we can embark on a search for something if we have no clear idea of what that something is. It challenges our assumptions about the nature of inquiry and the processes involved in gaining knowledge. Let's start by examining the nature of questions themselves. Questions are the fundamental tools of inquiry, acting as guides for our exploration. However, when we pose a question about something unknown, we often find ourselves in a perplexing situation. If we do not know what we are looking for, how can we effectively ask about it or search for it? This idea can be traced back to ancient philosophers who pondered the limits of human knowledge and the role of ignorance in the pursuit of understanding. Consider the example of a child who has lost a toy. Suppose the child does not remember the appearance of the toy or its location. In this circumstance, how does the child begin the search? They might rely on memory fragments, recalling the last moment spent with the toy. This illustrates how inquiries can start from a place of partial knowledge, even when the whole picture is unclear. This situation also evokes another layer of the paradox. When we ask questions, we often use familiar concepts as a framework to guide our inquiry. However, if we are venturing into completely uncharted territory, the lack of vocabulary, phrases, or frames of reference can be a significant obstacle. Imagine trying to describe a color never seen before. How do you express its essence? This is akin to seeking answers while standing on the precipice of the unknown. As we delve deeper into the paradox, we find that inquiry itself is an evolving process. Consider scientific discoveries, which often begin with vague questions. For instance, when early astronomers gazed at the night sky, they marveled at the stars and wondered about their nature. Over centuries, those wonderings led to revolutionary concepts in physics and astronomy. The questions transformed as knowledge expanded, paving the way for discoveries that were initially unfathomable. This leads us to an essential characteristic of inquiry. It can be iterative. The questions we ask can inform new queries and directions for exploration. For example, consider the journey of a geographical explorer, setting out into the wilderness without a map or a detailed itinerary. The initial lack of knowledge creates opportunities to ask questions about the surroundings, such as what kinds of terrain lie ahead or what native plants might be encountered. Each answer gained can inspire further questions, making the journey dynamic and responsive to new information. In addition to inquiry being iterative, there's also a social dimension to it. Knowledge is often co-created through discussion, collaboration, and collective curiosity. A group of individuals may come together to explore a topic, sharing their perspectives and insights, even if they do not entirely grasp the intricacies of the subject matter. Through dialogue, they can develop a richer understanding and engage with the unknown more effectively. This communal aspect of inquiry highlights the importance of diverse viewpoints in enriching our understanding of the world. The paradox of not knowing what we seek prompts us to reflect on uncertainty and the unknown. Embracing uncertainty can be a source of creativity and innovation. A scientist, faced with an unexpected experiment result, must then shift their focus. What does this new data suggest? Rather than retreating in confusion, the scientist is often inspired to ask new questions that can open entirely new avenues of research. This dynamic interplay of questions, exploration, and the unknown fosters a mindset of inquiry that is vital in various fields, from the arts to the sciences. It promotes adaptability and resilience in the face of ambiguity. As we navigate through uncertainties, we are invited to rethink our approaches, refine our questions, and expand our quest for knowledge. Moreover, the paradox of inquiry teaches us the value of humility. It reminds us that no matter how much we know, there is always more to discover. The vastness of the universe, the complexity of human behavior, and the intricacies of nature are filled with mysteries yet to unravel. Recognizing that we do not have all the answers encourages openness and continuous learning. The journey of inquiry may not always be straightforward, but it is rich with potential. By acknowledging the paradox and embracing the questions that arise, we can transform our understanding and enrich our experiences. In conclusion, the paradox of inquiry invites us to reflect on how we pursue knowledge and understanding when faced with uncertainty. It challenges us to navigate the unknown, fostering creativity and adaptability. Questions become not only the initial sparks of curiosity, but also tools that allow us to evolve, adapt, and grow in our search for truth. It reminds us that inquiry is a continuous journey, one that encourages us to revel in the adventure of discovery, even when our destination is unclear. Embrace the questions, cherish the exploration, and enjoy the journey of uncovering the unseen. The Sleeping Beauty Paradox is a fascinating topic within the realm of probability and philosophy that presents a unique puzzle. This paradox explores the complexities of belief, knowledge, and decision-making, as it invites us to consider how we reason about situations involving uncertainty. To illustrate this paradox, imagine a simple scenario. You are chosen to participate in a special experiment. Here's how it works. You will be put to sleep on a Sunday evening, and a coin will be flipped. If the coin comes up heads, you will be awakened only once on Monday morning. If it comes up tails, however, you will be awakened twice, once on Monday morning and again on Tuesday morning. Each time you are awakened, you will have no memory of the previous awakenings, and once you are awake, you can make a statement about the outcome of the coin flip. This brings us to the central question of the paradox. What should your belief about the coin being heads or tails be when you wake up? Intuitively, you may think that the probability of the coin being heads is 1 in 2, or 50%. After all, a coin has two sides, and it seems logical to conclude that one should not have any additional information favoring one outcome over the other. However, let's break this down further. If you wake up on Monday and find yourself in the experiment, you need to consider the different scenarios in which you could be awoken. If the coin was heads, you would awaken only on Monday morning, one single time. But if the coin was tails, you could awaken on both Monday and Tuesday mornings. This opens the door to an important consideration. How many times will you be awoken in total based on the outcome of the coin flip? Now let's think about the waking possibilities. In the case of heads, the chance of awakening is one event, whereas in the case of tails, there are two possible awakenings, Monday and Tuesday. Therefore, when you wake up on Monday morning, you have a total of 3 distinguishable waking scenarios, 1 from heads and 2 from tails. Given this breakdown, if you find yourself awake on Monday morning, there is a 2/3 chance that the coin flip was tails, and only a 1/3 chance that it was heads. This conclusion might seem counterintuitive at first, but it invites us to reconsider how we approach probability and outcomes based on incomplete information. The implications of the Sleeping Beauty Paradox stretch beyond mere probabilities. It encourages a deep dive into the nature of belief itself. When confronted with uncertainty about an event, how do we assign our beliefs? And what role does memory play in shaping our understanding of the events we experience? The paradox also intersects philosophy, specifically epistemology, which is the study of knowledge and belief. It raises important questions about how we come to know what we think we know. How do we balance new information against what we might already believe? To further explore this, consider the way in which information is presented to us in everyday life. When faced with a decision or a set of outcomes, the framing of those outcomes can greatly influence how we approach them. The Sleeping Beauty problem teaches us that the mere act of waking up gives us a new context that alters our understanding of probability and likelihood, even when those probabilities seem straightforward on the surface. Our response to such puzzles can have profound implications when applied to real-life situations, such as gambling, investment decisions, and even risk assessment in daily choices. How we interpret the odds in our lives can change based on the information we hold and how that information is influenced by time and context. Another layer of this paradox comes from the psychological perspective. Many people might feel a strong inclination to adhere to an initial assumption about the heads and tails probability, significantly influenced by common sense. Yet, those with a more analytical mindset may find themselves swayed by the statistical reality laid out in the waking scenarios. Ultimately, the Sleeping Beauty paradox reminds us of the complexities that lie within the seemingly simple world of probability. It serves as a compelling thought experiment, nudging us to appreciate the nuances between belief, knowledge, and decision-making. The way this paradox teaches critical thinking can inspire us to delve deeper into understanding our own cognitive biases and the assumptions that form the backdrop of our everyday judgments. As you explore probability and philosophical questions, consider how each layer of a problem unveils new perspectives, a journey rooted in both curiosity and contemplation. In summary, the Sleeping Beauty paradox is not merely a game of numbers. It invites us to reflect on perception, knowledge, and how we navigate uncertainty in a world where every awakening may reveal something new. Through engaging with this intriguing puzzle, we enhance our appreciation for probability, empowering ourselves with the skills to think critically about the world around us.